Chapter 670. Elder Poisonous Dragon found himself on the verge of a mental breakdown. That was because he had never encountered such a difficult situation before. His lightning poisonous dragon drill was the ultimate killing move that had allowed him to roam the world unhindered. Among the group of 15 overseas returnees from the Demon Hunters Association this time, Elder Jixing was undoubtedly the strongest, followed by Elder Yaren, who was famous for the body transformation spell. Elder Poisonous Dragon was ranked 4th overall, and 3rd was Elder Mingren, who had just arrived in Huaxiao Nation with the 9-tailed demon fox and had become autistic after being shaved bald by Huaxiao's dreadful hairdresser. Although Elder Poisonous Dragon was only ranked 4th, from a restraining point of view, his lightning poisonous dragon drill had a natural restraining effect on Elder Yaren's body transformation spell. That was to say, even Elder Yaren, who had an extremely strong self-healing ability, would have his self-healing ability greatly reduced in the face of Elder Poisonous Dragon drill. But what Elder Poisonous Dragon had just used was his strongest move, Ninjutsu, Lightning Poisonous Dragon drill 10th form, Aizenjoro's right-hand spiral rule. In order to use this move, he hadn't even hesitated to combine it with Sun Island's unique second energy source, chakra, which he hadn't yet fully mastered. In a situation where spirit energy and chakra were incompatible, he had to pay a certain price to use this move, and it was exactly as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had thought earlier. After using that extremely powerful killing move just now, Elder Poisonous Dragon's expression didn't look very good. He was a very thin person to begin with, but after using that move just now, it was as if all his energy had been sucked out of him, and he was thoroughly reduced to skin and bones. His eye sockets were deeply sunken, his body was covered in fine beads of sweat, and even his hair had instantly turned white. He looked like he had aged several decades. Sure enough, he paid a price. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal cupped his chin in his hand, then took out a small notebook to record what he saw. This was the aftereffect of a cultivator combining spirit energy and chakra, two mutually exclusive energy sources, to cast a spell. The information circulating online about the aftereffects had always been inaccurate, but now there was finally a real case that he could observe up close. It was just that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't quite understand why the combination of these two types of energy was so destructive to the body. Little Silver slowly walked over and crouched down to look at Elder Poisonous Dragon. Elder Poisonous Dragon was as scared as a weak girl being targeted by a hoodlum. "Don't come over. Come any closer. I'll call the police." Elder Poisonous Dragon kicked his legs and moved back a few steps, shrinking into the corner of the wall. His body was too weak to stand up at all. The damage caused by that move just now was beyond his imagination. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Little Silver observed Elder Poisonous Dragon's condition, then finally bit his nails and said, "He probably used the fat in his body as a medium, that's why he's so thin now." "So, it's a spell that converts fat into chakra and acts as an adaptive medium so that Ryatsu won't conflict with it?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately understood and noted this down. This was a very important discovery. Little Silver crouched down and poked Elder Poisonous Dragon, who was shivering in the corner. Elder Poisonous Dragon had already completely passed out and was muttering something like a nightmare. Little Silver sighed. Another crazy one. Furthermore, Little Silver had discovered a very important point. Anyone who came to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa to cause trouble didn't seem to have a good ending. Little Silver pinched Elder Poisonous Dragon's face. After confirming that the other party had completely passed out, he turned his head to look at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Should I call Little Master?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed from the bottom of his heart. Little Silver had already gotten used to this the first time. On the other side, Ajwa was dealing with Elder Yin's body when he received grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's call. Elder Yin had collapsed to the ground and was foaming at the mouth as if he had been poisoned to death. Neither Ajwa nor Zhonglang dared approach him. Because Elder Yin's body was still poisonous, they had to be extra cautious when dealing with him. It was like encountering a venomous snake in the desert. After killing it with poison, you had to bury the snake's head somewhere else. This was because even after death, a venomous snake still had nerve venom in its mouth, and if you were careless and were stabbed, you would still die. After all, the poison in this Elder Yin's body was unique enough to kill you. So after Elder Yin died, Jinka, who was attached to Ajwa's body, directly chose to take control of the driver in the van. Jinka then separated from Ajwa's body and turned back into a peachwood sword. Ajwa didn't dare touch Jinka directly, and only dared to do so after putting on white gloves, which was a form of reverence. Ajwa had prepared these white gloves early on in the hope that he would be more polite when he fought alongside Lord Jinka one day. Looks like my guess was right, someone really did go looking for trouble with Senior Immortal, Ajwa said into the phone. Fortunately, it's not a big problem. This person has already been dealt with, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal replied. I just asked the van driver about something. The person who went looking for trouble with Senior Immortal is an elder called Poisonous Dragon, who is ranked 4th among the 15 overseas returnee elites of the Demon Hunters Association. Ajwa scared. How did Senior Immortal deal with him? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal laughed. He couldn't touch us at all. Then he exhausted himself to death. Ajwa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Jua, how's the situation? Do you need help? Not for now. Ajwa shook his head. Because this Elder Yin's body is highly toxic, we can't approach him directly. I just called the municipal police station and asked them to seal off this part of the road for the time being to prevent passers-by from passing through. The anti-chemical protection personnel are on their way now, and they'll be responsible for dealing with this Elder Yin's body. That's good. We've already taken control of this Elder Poisonous Dragon, and we'll wait for Brother Jua to deal with him, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. Ajwa, all right, Senior Immortal. I'll go over after I deal with Elder Yin's body and the anti-chemical protection team arrives. Then the call ended. Ajwa heaved a deep sigh in his heart. He suddenly felt like he had become very busy. And for some reason, he had a bad feeling in his heart. He looked up at the end of the road, worried about the anti-chemical protection team who still hadn't arrived. Chapter 671. On the other side, Elder Yaren was on his way to retrieve the body. After receiving Elder Jixing's order, Elder Yaren set off right away and hurried along the way. Elder Yin was a half-poisonous person, so he was still useful even after his death. The most insidious way to use his body was to directly throw it into the school after number 60 High set up the barrier the next day and detonate it. In this way, the poison that had accumulated in Elder Yin's body would completely spread along with the explosion, and all the teachers and students in the school would suffer. They wouldn't die right away, because the spread of the poison would cause the concentration to drop. After experiencing unbearable pain and itching all over their bodies, all the teachers and students would explode with poison blisters all over their bodies and die. So for the Demon Hunters Association, even if Elder Yin died, he was a chess piece that they couldn't give up easily, because it would affect their later plans. Elder Yaren was driving a blood-red scythe, which was his personal magic weapon called Condemnation Hook. This was a third-class holy weapon which was very lethal, and the most frightening thing about it was its ability to appear and disappear unpredictably. This condemnation hook could also split into a blood-like substance in battle, and didn't have any particular fixed form. As for locating Elder Yin, Elder Yaren also had his own methods. He was extremely sensitive to blood, and could follow the trail of Elder Yin's blood after his sudden death. This was a powerful tracking method called blood hunting spell. Elder Yaren never thought that he would actually use this spell not long after returning to the country, and on his own people at that. What a useless thing. He couldn't even deal with 2 golden core good-for-nothings. But Elder Yaren didn't let his guard down, because on paper, Elder Yin shouldn't have lost so miserably in front of 2 golden core cultivators. The 2 golden core cultivators probably had other means of self-defense, or an almighty hiding behind them had made a move. As Elder Yaren steered the condemnation hook forward, he couldn't help thinking about this. From the start of the entire plan, the person they had to guard against the most was that Almighty who looked like a teenager. They had very limited information on this young Almighty. The Demon Hunters Association's reason for wanting to massacre number 60 High this time was also very simple. Retaliating against number 60 high was actually just one part of the plan. More importantly, they had to unearth the treasure hidden behind number 60 high. Apart from this reason, they really couldn't think of any reason why an almighty who looked like a teenager would be holed up in a Foundation establishment high school. Perhaps the secret of heavenly Tao was hidden in number 60 high. But in any case, it was all just conjecture. They would only know for sure when they carried out the plan tomorrow. At the same time, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa, Little Silver was tied up. He had given a lot of things when he had bought the collar previously. In addition, there were in Senior Immortal's hand. Little Silver was gratified to find that it had finally come in handy this time. He tied Elder Poisonous Dragon up in a very artistic posture, then stuffed a ball into Elder Poisonous Dragon's mouth and helped him put on a blindfold. Senior Yin's eyes and the eyes and mouth was Almighty Yin's eyes. Long Senior yelled, he put. Brother Silver, this rope isn't tough enough, he'll break free, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said as he examined the rope. It's fine, he's weak now, and I've also cast a body-securing curse on him. The most important thing is that I just wiped my saliva on the rope, and it's much tougher now, Little Silver said. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal drew his hand back. No wonder he had felt the rope was wet just now. He had thought it was damp. It turned out to be saliva. Little Silver's saliva was a little omnipotent. I'll tie him up like this for now. Little Silver clapped his hands, feeling like he had succeeded. He took out his phone and took several photos of Elder Ian from different angles. Then he opened his WeChat moments, edited, and sent. Little Silver actually didn't have many people in his WeChat moments, just a few in the chat group. Dog Boppy, Big and Small Master, Silien Jinren, Immortal Toya, Lightning Dharmaraja, and so on. Because he often stayed at home and his social circle was relatively small, Little Silver actually knew very few people. One of the few new friends he had was Wei Ji, whom Loopy Toad had introduced to him. Because Little Silver also liked to play team games, he would call Wei Ji over to play a duo game when he had nothing to do. But even with a limited number of friends, this picture still caused an explosive visual effect when it was sent. Silien Jinren was directly startled. She raised her hand to like it, and then replied, "What the hell? Is this Senior Immortal's house? Little Silver, you're openly playing SM, isn't Senior Immortal going to do something about it?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took out his phone and glanced at his WeChat moments, then sighed silently. He couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't do anything about this Silver. Lightning Dharmaraja. I never thought Brother Little Silver would actually be this kind of silver. I like it. Loopy Toad. Wow, so you like this? Okay, I'll find you one later. There are a lot of old men and old ladies when you go for a stroll in the market. You can pick one. Little Silver cocked his head. There's nothing wrong with this posture. When I was in the clan, my grandfather taught me to tie like this. He said it's especially good, and he often used it on my grandmother. I've been practicing this for a long time. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Silien Jinren, Lightning Dharmaraja, Immortal Toya, Brother Little Silver, how about you take off the blindfold and the ball in the mouth? You'll look a little better that way. Is that so? Little Silver was actually a little puzzled. Since the ball in the mouth and the blindfold were complementary decorations, there had to be a place for him to sing. But seeing that everyone was in agreement, Little Silver still took off Elder Poisonous Dragon's blindfold and ball in the mouth. As a result, with this movement, Elder Poisonous Dragon actually woke up from his unconscious state. He found himself tied up in a very shameful position, and Little Silver was holding the blindfold and ball in his hands. The ball in the mouth was still stained with his saliva. Thus, Elder Poisonous Dragon stared at Little Silver in horror. What did you do to me? Little Silver took out his phone and showed the photo to Elder Poisonous Dragon. It's nothing, it's just a normal photo record. When you were asleep just now, I made a lot of poses for you. Look, it's actually quite artistic. Elder Poisonous Dragon nodded. At that moment, Elder Poisonous Dragon's face was red. He felt that he already didn't have the face to continue living. About 5 minutes later, inside the military tent, Elder Ji Xing saw Elder Poisonous Dragon's soul mark disappear like an exploding light. In the end, Elder Poisonous Dragon died under his own romantic drill. Chapter 672. Elder Poisonous Dragon's soul mark had disappeared so abruptly that it was even more merciless than when a male guest on the dating show, If You Are the One, had his lights extinguished. Staring at the spirit crystal ball in front of him, Elder Ji Xing repeatedly confirmed that the soul mark had disappeared, and the result was a little hard for him to accept. Before the official start of the operation tomorrow, 2 of the 15 Overseas Returnee Demon Hunters Association elites had actually died in battle. And one of them was Elder Poisonous Dragon, who was ranked in the top 5. This tragic loss was very hard for Elder Ji Xing to bear, and as for how Elder Poisonous Dragon had died, that was also a mystery. Even if that silver-haired young man was a little difficult to deal with, at the very least, Great Death Courting Sr., who was only at the soul formation stage, should have been able to deal with him. Thus, Elder Ji Xing felt a deep sense of strangeness in this matter. "What are you thinking, Sonico?" asked Elder Nank, who looked like a child on the outside but was an adult on the inside. Elder Ji Xing scratched the back of his head and sighed, feeling a headache coming on. "I'm thinking whether our operation this time is accurate or not." When all was said and done, they had no idea what this young expert's true realm was, and President Bai had never fought him before. He only made a rough estimate that the other party was most likely an early or middle true immortal expert. But in the battle tomorrow, in addition to setting up the barrier, President Bai would also personally deal with this young expert. This would be a true immortal showdown between true immortals. But that was the problem. They had only estimated that the other party was a true immortal. What if the other party was stronger than early or middle true immortal? Is Sonico afraid? Elder Nank's words were merciless. Afraid? How is that possible? Elder Ji Xing shook his head. As the saying went, those who had nothing to lose weren't afraid of those who wore shoes. Since they had already chosen to organize this attack, of course they wouldn't be afraid. Even if they couldn't kill this young expert in the end, as long as they could retaliate against the other teachers and students of number 60 high, their plan would be considered a success. No matter how strong that young expert was on his own, there was no way he could protect everyone while he was entangled with President Bai, right? He wasn't Heavenly Tao. That was what Elder Ji Xing thought. At that moment, Elder Nank asked, "Shouldn't we collect Elder Poisonous Dragon's body?" Du Long must have overdrawn his strength. Even if his body is left behind, it will be of no use to us. There's no harm in not retrieving it. When the Demon Hunters Association implanted the soul imprint, we also set up the soul imprint. Once the implant dies, all the memories left in the skull will disappear. So there's no need to worry about the police finding any clues from Elder Poisonous Dragon's body, said Elder Ji Xing. The only thing he was concerned about now was whether the process of retrieving Elder Yarn's body had gone smoothly. He was ranked second only to him in terms of overall combat strength among the 15 people. Elder Ji Xing was very confident in this. He used blood hunting method to chase after Elder Yin until he reached the section where he died. Elder Yarn found a hidden spot at the end of the road to land. Because this section of the road had already been sealed off, not to mention the high-altitude control up ahead, there were even layers of roadblocks set up on the ground. Vehicles that had to pass this road had to be directed to other roads by the traffic police at the intersection. It seemed that Elder Yin was not far ahead. Elder Yarn narrowed his eyes. He guessed that the other party clearly already knew that Elder Yin's body was highly toxic, which was why they had chosen to seal off the road and the sky. They wouldn't let any cultivators pass. Even if Elder Yin was already dead, the poison in his body would still be extremely terrifying, so it was actually a very wise decision for the police to deal with it this way. But this just happened to give Elder Yarn an opportunity. Because there were no outsiders passing through this section of the road, the only people passing by were police vehicles. Thus, when he saw a fully armed white anti-chemical vehicle in the distance stop at the intersection to be inspected by the traffic police, Elder Yarn already had an idea. He was a person who did not like to cause unnecessary trouble. Since the organization's mission this time was for him to bring back Elder Yin's corpse, then he would avoid as many battles as he could. Otherwise, it would only bring unnecessary trouble before the big plan officially started tomorrow. Blood escape body teleportation spell, Elder Yaren said in a low voice. His entire body instantly turned into flowing blood that scattered all over the ground as he scurried off in one direction. This blood escape body teleportation spell was also one of Elder Yaren's famous skills. It allowed him to freely divide his body into liquid and move around, then reassemble it at a designated location. It was different from the body transformation spell. Strictly speaking, the body transformation spell was a resurrection spell. Even after death, Elder Yaren could use the body transformation spell to reconstruct his body. But the blood escape body teleportation spell was actually a movement technique that allowed Elder Yaren to freely transform his body into blood. The trickiest thing was that this spell could be used in battle. If used properly, it could cancel out all physical spells and spirit techniques at the same time. Hence, physical attacks were useless against Elder Yaren, which was why he was ranked so high. He was a man who was immune to physical attacks. He was also known as Elder Ant. In the middle of the road, a stream of blood swiftly took up residence, and little by little, it finally piled up to form a young man with short white hair. He was wrapped in a dark red Taoist robe embroidered with a blood-red sun pattern. Elder Yaren teleported himself to the middle of the road, and at that moment, the anti-chemical vehicle coming from the intersection was also approaching Elder Yaren. When the little brother driving the vehicle saw a person suddenly appear in the middle of the road, he was startled and hurriedly stepped on the brakes. Why is there a person? Not good. But it was already too late. The entire anti-chemical vehicle directly ran over Elder Yaren's body. The little brother who was driving the vehicle was dumbfounded. When he got out of the car to check, he saw that the bottom of the car's wheels was actually mottled with blood. He had actually crushed this person into a paste. Wearing a white anti-chemical suit, the little brother knelt on the ground in great grief and started to doubt his life. It was over. Everything was over. He had run over someone and his career was ruined. What's going on? There were several other anti-chemical personnel in the same car, and they all got out at that moment to check on the situation. Seeing that everyone was present, Elder Yaren immediately transformed from blood to human form. When the anti-chemical personnel let their guard down, he immediately cast a spell. Blood-binding spell. A blood-colored waterfall shot out of Elder Yaren's palm and turned into a long bloody whip, which tightly bound up the 6 members of the chemical defense team. Chapter 673. The overall situation was going more smoothly than Elder Yaren had imagined. The blood-binding spell wasn't just a simple confinement spell, but a dark spell that could transform chi and blood into spirit energy to replenish one's body. All dark spells were currently banned on the market and weren't allowed to be used or sold. However, this type of spell was very popular in foreign markets. Elder Yaren only drew out part of the chi and blood in these little brothers' bodies so that they fainted from lack of chi and blood and didn't completely kill them. Because from the very beginning of the plan, Elder Yaren had already decided not to do anything superfluous. His goal was very clear, and that was just to retrieve the corpses. Even if Director Zhou got in the way of retrieving the corpses, Elder Yaren didn't intend to tangle with him too much. All of this wouldn't affect tomorrow's master plan. The chi and blood absorbed from these little brothers turned into a glowing scarlet magic ball which floated slightly above Elder Yaren's head. In the end, this scarlet magic ball poured in through the top of his skull and was thoroughly absorbed by Elder Yaren. At the same time, Elder Yaren's body gave off a red luster, and his complexion seemed to have improved significantly, converting chi and blood into spirit energy to replenish his body. Drawing out 30% of the chi and blood from each of the 6 golden core cultivators was a considerable amount of profit. Because Elder Ji Xing had drunk a part of his body previously, Elder Yaren was still a little weak. But now that he was filled with this energy, Elder Yaren indeed felt a lot more comfortable. How's the plan going? At that moment, Elder Ji Xing's voice came from Elder Yaren's soul mark. He was using the soul crystal ball in front of him to communicate remotely using a spell. The biggest advantage of this method of communication was that it could reach the soul directly and ignore signals. Even in an area where there was no signal at all, you could use this method to contact someone who had a soul mark on them. The most important thing was that they wouldn't be monitored. Because of the sudden deaths of Elder Yin and Elder Poisonous Dragon, Elder Jixing was a little worried about the progress of Elder Yarn's mission. As the second strongest person in their 15-member team in terms of overall fighting strength, it would be a huge loss to the whole team if he died just like that. So far, it's going very smoothly, Elder Yarn replied. He knew that the communication with the spirit crystal ball had been activated, and he only needed to think of a reply in his mind. Elder Yarn hid the fainted little brothers in the green belt on the side and set up a scarlet barrier here. This was a barrier spell which could completely conceal this group's aura. Hearing Elder Yarn's reply, Elder Jixing breathed a sigh of relief and then said solemnly, I just received the latest reply from Immortal Castle. The road where Elder Yin was located had already been sealed off, and the anti-chemical warfare team was on their way there. This matter must be resolved as soon as possible. Of course. Elder Yarn replied, my task is just to retrieve the corpses. I've already stopped their anti-chemical protection vehicle and am ready to sneak in disguise. Don't worry, I don't plan to do anything else. I'm just going to retrieve the corpse very quickly. I'll definitely return intact. Elder Yarn's voice came out of the spirit crystal ball. But for some reason, Elder Jixing felt rather uneasy when he heard this. Meanwhile, on the other side of the road, Jua and Zhonglang were still waiting for the anti-chemical protection vehicle. The anti-chemical protection vehicle was too slow. They had already been waiting here for a long time, and during this time, Elder Yin's highly toxic body had already reacted, and some black poisonous gas was slowly spreading out from his corpse. This highly toxic gas had a powerful corrosive power, and even the ground was being melted. At the same time, it was also burning the van on the side. Elder Yin's corpse had now been completely reduced to a highly acidic and corrosive poison. Zhonglang pinched his nose. Brother Zhua, is this really okay? His gaze couldn't help drifting to the peachwood sword in Jua's hand. Needless to say, it was the power of this spirit sword that had helped them escape danger just now. But Zhonglang still couldn't quite believe his eyes. Because the problem was that this sword just looked like an ordinary peachwood sword. He had seen many identical ones in the flower and bird market. This peachwood sword had actually given birth to a sword spirit. Just a moment ago, it had actually attached itself to Jua's body to fight against Elder Yin. Zhonglang felt that everything he knew had already been turned upside down, and his mind was in a mess. The anti-chemical protection team will be here soon. Let's try to hold our breaths. After saying that, he and Zhonglang took a few more steps back. The black poisonous gas emitted from Elder Yin's corpse had already started to spread like a poisonous circle and was about to reach their feet. At that moment, the spirit sword in Jua's hand trembled slightly. He was startled. Lord Jinka? At that moment, Jinka made a move again. He drew a circle with sword chi around Elder Yin's corpse to create a brown barrier that firmly trapped the poisonous gas inside. During the process, Zhonglang clearly saw the virtual body of a sword spirit with short white hair that looked like a 10-year-old child. Although Jinka's true appearance had been fleeting, Zhonglang had still seen it. For some reason, Zhonglang's heart inexplicably sped up, and his face flushed. He felt that this peachwood sword was a little cool. Brother Zhua, this spirit sword, it's my Shifu's spirit sword. Zhua didn't avoid the topic. In fact, a lot of people knew that he had a Shifu, but who on earth this Shifu was still a mystery. Zhonglang's emotions surged. Brother Zhua's Shifu's spirit sword is a little cool. Does he have a name? Does he have an underling? Zhua looked into the air and said, he's called Jinka? I'm used to calling him Lord Jinka. Jing as in Jing, Ku as in a dream of grandeur. Jinka? What a good name. Zhonglang was very excited. So it was Lord Jinka. He felt that he had already become a fan. Was this what it felt like to be moved? Just as Zhonglang was filled with excitement, he could vaguely hear the sound of a car approaching up ahead. The anti-chemical protection car had finally arrived. Elder Yaren got out of the driver's seat. He was wearing a white anti-chemical protection suit that he had taken off one of the little brothers earlier. Even his eyes were completely hidden by the reflective material of the chemical protection suit's mask, and his entire body was wrapped up so tightly that his face couldn't be seen at all. After the anti-chemical protection vehicle came to a stop, Elder Yaren feigned respect and waved at them, then swept his eyes over their surroundings. The corpse poison in Elder Yin's body had already turned into black qi and was spreading out, but this black qi was actually contained within a brown barrier. "Comrade, are you the only one?" Ajwa greeted him from a distance. "Yes." Elder Yaren nodded. The more he said, the more mistakes he would make, so he was concise and to the point. Ajwa nodded. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't understand. After all, retrieving the poison corpse was very risky. Outside the barrier, Ajwa stretched out his hand to shake this little brother's hand. "Thank you for your hard work, comrade. I'll talk to your leader later. What we need now is someone with a fearless and sacrificial spirit like you." "Ha, you flatter me." Considering Ajwa's identity, Elder Yaren felt that it was better to shake hands with him in order not to give himself away. So he walked out of the sword chi barrier that Jinka had created, took off his gloves, and shook hands with Ajwa. After shaking hands, Elder Yaren returned to Elder Yin's body. He was extremely nervous, afraid that he would give himself away. Ajwa saw that this little brother had even forgotten to put his gloves back on before directly touching Elder Yin's body. "Ajwa, comrade, wait." Unfortunately, it was already too late. About 5 minutes later, inside the military tent, Elder Ji Xing observed Elder Yaren's soul imprint through the spirit crystal ball. It was different from Elder Yin's and Elder Poisonous Dragon's lights, which had directly exploded. Chapter 674. What's going on? Everyone in the military tent was petrified. This definitely wasn't a problem with the spirit crystal ball, because it had just been given to them by President Bai a few days ago, and there hadn't been any problems when it had been used before. It couldn't have malfunctioned for no reason. How could there be such a sparkling situation? This wasn't the time to sing, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." This wasn't LV Shu. Elder Yaren? Yaren? If you hear me, please reply. Elder Ji Xing suddenly became nervous and asked repeatedly. They had already lost 2 of their elders in battle. They were an important fighting force. If something happened to Elder Yaren again, their fighting strength would plummet. Considering that number 60 High was full of experts, their original plan had been for Elder Yaren to lead some of the elites to deal with that epic-level killer gorgeous itinerant, while he would personally lead some people to take down number 60 High's headmaster Chen. But now, Elder Yaren, who had always handled things cautiously, had actually met with an accident, which no one in the military tent had expected. What on earth happened? Elder Ji Xing propped himself up on the table with an incredulous expression on his face. On the other side, Elder Yaren, who had forgotten to put on his gloves and directly touched Elder Yin's body in his anti-chemical suit, directly fell to the ground in front of Ajwa and Zhong Lang. With a plop, he collapsed to the ground just like that, completely unguarded and without the slightest bit of apprehension. "Ajwa, Zhong Lang, Brother Zhua, what should we do now?" Zhong Lang was a little flustered. After all, someone was already dead. Furthermore, the poisonous gas inside the sword chi sealing barrier was getting thicker and thicker. They didn't have any protective gear on them, so they couldn't get close at all. No, the situation might not be that bad. Ajwa instinctively wanted to rush in to save Elder Yin. "Lord Jinka, please," he said in his heart. In the next moment, the peachwood sword in his hand turned into a streak of brown light again, and like a god possessed it, it merged with Ajwa's body. This was Zhong Lang's second time seeing this scene, and he was already completely used to it. He knew that Lord Jinka had made a move again. When man and sword became one, no matter what the realm of the possessed person was, their aura would rise by leaps and bounds. At this moment, the density of the black poisonous gas emitted by Elder Yin's corpse gradually increased within the sword chi barrier, and the scene inside could no longer be seen. Elder Yin and Elder Yaren weren't weak, But in the face of this poison and without any protective measures, they collapsed at the first touch. No cultivator could possibly barge in like this without any precautions. But as soon as Ajwa stepped in, the brown protective sword Chi directly parted the poisonous gas like a god parting the sea, leaving a path for him to pass through. Then Ajwa, who had been possessed by Jinka, raised his hand and used sword Chi to prop up the fallen little brother and drag him out of the poisonous sword Chi barrier. Zhonglang, it's a success. However, things did not end there. After dragging this little brother out, Jinka separated from Ajwa's body, and Zhonglang once again saw Jinka's true form, a cute little Shota with short white hair and a poker face. There's something wrong with this person. Jinka stared at the little brother who had been rescued in front of him and muttered to himself. Although Elder Yaren had already concealed his aura, he still couldn't escape Jinka's perception. As a member of the anti-chemical protection team, this member had a strange advantage of having a high realm, and it was precisely this that attracted Jinka's attention. He raised his hand and with a light swipe of his fingertips, the entire anti-chemical protection suit was cut in two. Elder Yaren's true form was finally exposed. Zhonglang, Brother Zhua, who is this person? Ajwa shook his head. A hen, Zhonglang. It was only then that Ajwa realized that the anti-chemical protection team member had probably been intercepted and had been replaced. They had checked the information on the members of the anti-chemical protection team before and had also seen photos of them from the police station. In order to retrieve Elder Yin's body this time, the cultivation police station closest to here had sent 6 members of the anti-chemical protection team. But when the anti-chemical protection car had arrived just now, only the driver had gotten out of the car. Ajwa patted his head in sudden realization. He should have realized it earlier. Zhonglang, then what do we do now? Ajwa sighed. Have the police station send another team over. Also, quickly search for information on this anti-chemical protection team. This person has the Demon Hunters Association logo on him, so he must have been sent by them to retrieve the body. Staring at Elder Yaren on the ground, Ajwa was a little speechless. This was too unlucky. At that moment, the intense poison in Elder Yin's body had already seeped into Elder Yaren's body and was wantonly destroying his cells. At the same time, Elder Yaren's new cells were constantly being reconstructed. This directly resulted in Elder Yaren's current state, which was like a loach that had been bitten by a ghost, twitching non-stop on the ground. Ajwa never expected the Demon Hunters Association to send Elder Yin. He had actually used this method to inflict a heavy blow on himself and his allies. A double kill. At the same time, in the headmaster's office at number 60 High, Headmaster Chen hadn't rested that day and had just arrived at school. This was because he had received a message from Ajwa earlier. The Demon Hunters Association was going to launch a retaliatory attack on number 60 High, and had also mobilized a large number of elite cultivators who had practiced ninjutsu on Sun Island from overseas. It could be said that the severity of the situation had suddenly risen several notches. In comparison, the Shadow Stream assassin invasion back then was nothing compared to this premeditated organized attack. At the same time, Director Shi, the Director of Education at number 60 High, was also notified. Lord Headmaster, how should we deal with this matter? Director Shi asked on one side. She had been sitting at home eating melons for the last 2 days. A lip-syncing live streamer called Dean had been hammered into the ground by a web novelist and had directly died in society. In the end, she had been happily eating melons when she received Ajwa's intelligence message and had rushed over to the school without stopping. Given our current teaching strength, I'm afraid we won't be able to protect all the students, and it will also take time for the higher-ups to mobilize manpower. Lord Headmaster, you mean? The main reason I called you here is to coordinate the work of the teachers and parents. Some of the students' parents are very resourceful and may have already heard some rumors. You have to think of a way to stabilize them. Headmaster Chen's words were very profound, but the expression on his face was as calm as usual, and he couldn't help smiling. But we probably don't need to worry too much about this matter. Whether or not these killers can make it here alive tomorrow is a question. Director Shi scratched her head, not understanding what he meant. Chapter 675. Mother 1 had worked at number 60 High for over 100 years, and the first generation of teachers at number 60 High had eaten her cooking since its founding. A lot of teachers were very familiar with Mother 1, but sometimes when they thought about it carefully, they felt that their understanding of her was really very limited. They didn't even know her background at all, and only knew that she had a lot of disciples in the culinary world. So when she heard Headmaster Chen's words, Director Shi's expression turned a little profound. The headmaster didn't say everything clearly, but even so, it was already extremely frightening to think about. Since the food tasting at the parents' food tasting event wasn't prepared for the parents, then, had Mother 1 already anticipated the Demon Hunters Association's attack? Director Shi didn't dare think about it further, because the result might be too horrifying for her, even though she was the director of teaching at number 60 High. Although she was the director of teaching at number 60 High, Director Shi had been teaching at number 60 High for less than 1/5 as long as Mother 1. At first, Director Shi had always thought that Mother 1 was just an ordinary cook who usually liked to research new and novel cuisines. But now that Headmaster Chen had mentioned it, Director Shi instantly felt that she wasn't so simple. It's not convenient for me to say too much about this matter. Director Shi, please think about it yourself. Headmaster Chen crossed his fingers and smiled slightly. Our school is small, but some of the teachers' backgrounds aren't simple. Director Shi wiped at her sweat. I understand, Headmaster. Headmaster Chen, don't underestimate the teachers around you, and don't ignore the parents' feelings. Some parents are definitely already aware of this matter. I'll take care of safety, but I'll have to trouble you with the parents' emotions and feelings. Very well, Lord Headmaster. Director Shi nodded. She sighed in her heart, because she wasn't sure if all the parents knew about this. Regarding this, Director Shi decided to arrange for the teacher in charge to coordinate with the teachers who were free to make home visits in groups of 2s and 3s later. Elsewhere, Audiobook had already confirmed Elder Yaren's identity. Not only was he an elite overseas returnee member of the Demon Hunters Association, his position in the organization wasn't low. The police found a lot of proof of his identity from the communication devices seized on him, as well as evidence that he was in close contact with that Elder Ji Xing Songhai First Prison. When Audiobook arrived again, the prison guards at the entrance were already familiar with him. From a distance, they saw Audiobook's license plate number and confirmed the identity of the person in the car, and the prison gates slowly opened before Audiobook's car could approach. Now, all of Audiobook's work related to arresting criminals was coordinated with Songhai First Prison. Apart from providing a place to hold prisoners, the prison would also conduct subsequent interrogations here. Earlier, Elder Yaren had been directly driven here by a new member of the anti-chemical protection team to be held in isolation. His body was deeply poisoned. Although the recovery cells in his body were continuously healing him, it seemed like there was no way to completely cleanse Elder Yin's poison. The silver lining of the entire misfortune was that the anti-chemical defense team members sent by the first team hadn't died. They had been discovered in the Green Belt, where there was a hidden barrier set up by Elder Yaren. After a careful search, the corresponding evidence could be found. In other words, this Elder Yaren hadn't intended to cause any trouble from the beginning, and his only goal had been to retrieve Elder Yin's body. In the end, he had fallen for it. In the car, Audiobook slapped his face and dropped his forehead into his hand. What kind of operation was this? Zhong Lang, Brother Zhua, you look a little uncomfortable. Are you all right? Audiobook, I'm fine. It's just a little pain in the ass. Zhong Lang. After sending Audiobook off, Zhong Lang returned to the general administration of 100 schools first, because they already knew about the Demon Hunters Association's revenge plan against number 60 High tomorrow. Furthermore, word of this alarmist revenge plan had already leaked to some parents, and the general administration of 100 schools' back-end hotline was already exploding with calls from number 60 High parents, most of whom had come to verify the situation. Thus, Zhong Lang had no choice but to go back and deal with important matters first. It was very important to appease the parents. It was normal for people to be afraid of the unknown. Furthermore, the ultimate leader of the Demon Hunters Association had been on the run all along. Now that the other party had chosen to retaliate against number 60 High, the alma mater of Audiobook, who was the chief commander of the Demon Hunters Association incident, a lot of the parents were indeed terrified. Audiobook already had no intention of looking at the information online. As the chief commander of this incident, President Bai hadn't yet been caught, and as the person in charge of the general administration of 100 schools, Audiobook indeed couldn't escape the blame. Audiobook felt that it was fine to be scolded a little. In any case, it was fine as long as he was thick-skinned enough. As a person, it was fine as long as he had a clear conscience. The most thick-skinned thing he had ever done in his life was acknowledge Wang Ling as Shifu. Thus, the superficial scolding online didn't matter to Audiobook at all. Warden Liang had already been waiting in the office for a long time. As soon as Audiobook entered, Warden Liang smiled at him. As the saying went, some people were happy while others were sad. While Audiobook was indeed being scolded, Warden Liang was happy. In the last 2 or 3 months, more bigwigs had been detained in Songhai prison than in previous years combined. Nowadays, the quality of the prisoners in the prison was also very important. With so many high-quality prisoners, the prison's profits were huge. The spirit energy limit on the spirit shackles could be adjusted through technical means. Usually, the old devil, master of Immortal Mansion Qingyu and evil sword god would loosen some of the spirit energy restrictions on the spirit shackles they wore. For example, they were allowed to use 5% of their spirit energy, which they then used to help complete various construction tasks in the prison. The old devil and the others were often regarded as important labor and were ordered about. They looked leisurely and could usually find time to play cards, but the truth was that they were just taking a break from their busy schedule. Although this Elder Yaren was currently still poisoned, Warden Liang was already deeply aware that Elder Yaren's special characteristic was that he was close to immortality. Director Zhua, please sit. Warden Liang pulled Audiobook to one side, then urged a male secretary in the office who looked a little dazed. What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and pour some tea for Director Zhua. After saying that, Warden Liang felt that just drinking tea wasn't appropriate, so he asked Audiobook in a low voice, "That, old Zhua. I just bought an 800-year-old bottle of Commander Lee's brand sweet potato wine. Do you want to try it?" Audiobook, "It's office time, no need, all right then." Warden Liang nodded, found a seat, and looked at Audiobook. "If you want to drink it, come find me anytime. Don't stand on ceremony with me." Audiobook sighed. "How's it going?" We found some clues from the equipment this Elder Yaren is carrying. This Elder Yaren and Elder Ji Xing, who Elder Zhuowu mentioned, have an unusual relationship. Warden Liang said, in Elder Yaren's text message, Elder Ji Xing calls Elder Yaren, Little Yaya. What do you think Elder Yaren calls Elder Ji Xing? Audiobook was stunned. Chapter 676. Audiobook didn't have the guts to think any further. This was too dirty. How could 2 men address each other like that? Gay inside gay. Audiobook's face inexplicably turned red, and when Warden Liang saw this, he couldn't help glancing at the cooling talisman in the office. Nowadays, for the sake of environmental protection, they didn't even use air conditioning anymore, and directly used talismans to lower the temperature. At that moment, it was very obvious that the cooling talisman was working normally as it emitted a light blue talisman light on the wall. One cooling talisman could be used for 72 hours. Warden Liang scratched the back of his head. He wondered why Director Zhua's face had suddenly turned so red, since it wasn't like he had used a cooling talisman in the office. Old Zhua, what are you thinking about? Warden Liang's expression was a little strange, and he snapped his fingers in front of Zhua's face. After coming back to his senses, Zhua looked at Warden Liang. How does Elder Yaren address Elder Ji Xing? Oh, you're thinking of this? Warden Liang chuckled. Elder Ji Xing calls him Little Yaya, so of course Elder Yaren calls him Little Xingxing. Zhua lowered his head in shame. As expected, he was too dirty. There's a lot of information in this Elder Yaren's communication device. Although a lot of the information is encrypted and in the process of being deciphered, the amount of information we've analyzed so far is already enormous. Warden Liang took a sip of tea and analyzed all the information he knew. According to our information, in the Demon Hunters Association's master plan for tomorrow, There will be a total of 15 overseas cultivators who have studied ninjutsu from Sun Island participating in the operation. 10, 15? He raised his eyebrows. It felt like this was a suicide mission. For some reason, Ajwa suddenly felt inexplicably worried about the futures of these 15 people. Actually, from the moment Ajwa heard about this so-called Demon Hunters Association revenge plan, he hadn't thought much of it at all. Because he was well aware that his Shifu was at number 60 high, so he couldn't be any safer. There was no safer place in the world than number 60 high school, although the outside world was now spreading all sorts of alarmist talk and even targeting him. Ajwa didn't care at all. From the very beginning, Ajwa hadn't been worried about number 60 high's safety. On the contrary, it was grenade-throwing senior Immortal and the others, who had previously come into contact with the Demon Hunters Association, who made him feel a little on edge. And old Zhua, among these 15 people, that elder Ji Xing is the mastermind behind this incident. This time, the other side was completely prepared. Although I said that I called you over to share the information that I've obtained so far, I actually still want to tell you. After a moment of silence, Warden Liang said, I suggest that you don't go online for the time being. I've read the comments online. Are they very unpleasant to hear? Ajwa smiled. Actually, Ajwa didn't believe that it was the parents of number 60 high school who were cursing online. He felt that it was more likely that it was the water army arranged by his local colleagues. It was normal to have competition in the workplace. As the saying went, a tall tree attracts the wind. His rapid rise in the last few months had definitely made people envious. Now that this had happened, it wouldn't be strange at all for someone to target him. Old secretary, what do you think? Ajwa suddenly asked. In contrast, he was more concerned about Secretary Dakong's opinion. Recently, Secretary Dakong had been very busy planning the summer camp for Songhai City schools in Beast King's remains. Furthermore, the Demon Hunters Association's revenge plan had only come to light in the last few days, and Ajwa himself hadn't reported it to Secretary Dakong yet. What opinion can the old secretary have? Of course he has to comply with the will of the people. He said that even if it's his people, he won't tolerate it. Then, Warden Liang took a sip of tea. How fragrant. Ajwa, you're in this position at such a young age. If something happens, someone will definitely target you. He promoted you back then, but now you've completely disgraced him. He said that you have to be punished. After saying that, Warden Liang took another sip of tea. How fragrant. Ajwa smiled bitterly. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Everyone knew that one of Secretary Dakong's biggest characteristics was that he was protective of his own people, especially those of his own faction. Back when Evil Sword God had been arrested, General Yi had been looking for Ajwa to talk to him. If it hadn't been for this old secretary stopping him back then, Ajwa was well aware that given General Yi's methods, he would have very quickly traced it back to his Shifu. On the surface, Warden Liang had asked Ajwa to come over this time to share information. But in fact, Ajwa was well aware that this was Warden Liang conveying the old secretary's intentions. Ajwa was now in the teeth of the storm, so it was reasonable for the old secretary to avoid suspicion for the time being and not have any direct contact with him. Although Warden Liang was just a messenger, he was also very astute. It was impossible for him to express the old secretary's intentions directly, otherwise he would definitely become a laughingstock if someone heard him. This was simply sharing information and chatting, in passing to convey the old secretary's intentions. On the side, the secretary pouring tea had a calm expression on his face, but there were a few drops of cold sweat on his cheeks. The corners of his mouth twitched. Could the two of you be any more obvious? Ajwa and Warden Liang weren't stupid. From the moment they had entered the office, Ajwa had already sensed a slight fluctuation in Warden Liang's little eyes. It was very obvious that he had something to tell Ajwa. What else did he say? The old secretary isn't going to express any opinion on what the outside world is saying. He's decided to let you fend for yourself. Even if you step down in the end, it has nothing to do with him. Warden Liang continued to drink his tea. How fragrant. Ajwa, Warden Liang, oh that's right. Apart from this, the old secretary also hopes that you can take your time with this matter. The slower you handle it, the better. Otherwise, you might as well not handle it at all, and just wait for your death. Audjwa nodded and took a sip of the tea in his hand. This tea is really fragrant. The secretary, when they left Songhai First Prison, Warden Liang saw Audjwa off. Don't forget to come and try my sweet potato wine later. As Songhai First Prison's current strategic partner, Warden Liang could afford to pay for this wine. This 800-year-old sweet potato wine wasn't something an ordinary person could drink, it was a precious brew from his hometown, and he had haggled with his fellow townsmen for a long time before he was able to buy it. Audjwa, Ching. Warden Liang rested his elbow on the window. Oh, that's right, Audjwa. Do you know what nickname the outside world has given you now? Audjwa, what nickname? Chapter 677. After saying goodbye to Warden Liang, Audjwa's next job was to work with Zhong Lang to pacify the parents. In the end, he still had to deal with this matter directly, otherwise his colleagues in the outside world who were intent on messing with him would start pushing the blame onto him. Most of the time, netizens were like this. They liked to join in on the fun and completely disregarded the logic and consequences of the matter itself. Just because he hadn't been able to apprehend President Bai, the blame for the Demon Hunters Association's revenge plan against number 60 high school this time was entirely on him. Audjwa really didn't know where to start. Actually, this was a little similar to something that had happened online not long ago. A little girl wanted to jump off a building, and not only did more than 100 people below not dissuade her, they even started mocking her, asking her when she could jump and how she shouldn't get in the way of the police and firefighters if she didn't want to jump. In the end, the girl, who couldn't feel the last trace of warmth in the world, chose to directly commit suicide. This is a very, very tragic thing. At the same time, it was also very chilling. This reminded Audjwa of a line he had read online. I've never been afraid to speculate on the worst of Hua Nation's melon-eating citizens, but I didn't expect or believe that they would be this cruel. Of course, Audjwa often preferred to think on the bright side. Sometimes, it wasn't the good people who turned bad, but the bad people who grew old. Those who lived cowardly lives in the cracks would often arm themselves with another attitude on the internet and become strong. Thus, this group of people might be the same kind of people as the online mob. This time, it was Audjwa's personal driver who picked him up in the car that Zhong Lang had driven back to the general administration of 100 schools. On the way, Audjwa sent Director Shi a text message to request that he personally make a home visit to the Wang family's small villa. He knew that his Shifu didn't like trouble, so he simply took the matter on himself for now. Whether he would go or not would be another matter. Elsewhere, at number 60 high school after school, Wang Ling and the other students in class received the news of the home visit. It looked very serious, because Wang Ling had heard that Headmaster Chen was going to attend a conference in another city today, but in the end had come back to the school halfway to direct work. The ultimate goal was the Demon Hunters Association's revenge plan. The class was in the middle of a heated discussion, and Dopigwa started a wave of heated discussion. Although Wang Ling didn't know the specifics of this plan, it at least explained the reason for his eyelid warning. Overall, it was more or less what he had guessed. The only difference was that he hadn't expected the Demon Hunters Association to be so ruthless this time. Not only was he targeting Audjwa, but he also wanted to directly retaliate against number 60 high school. One of my uncles in the police station told me that the Demon Hunters Association seems to be organizing a group to take revenge on our school. It said that not a single teacher or student will be spared, said Dopigwa. This reminded him of a famous Chinese jungler's classic line, I want them all. They came prepared this time, but it seems like the plan didn't go smoothly. It seems like before they attacked our school, 3 of their main forces were already captured. I heard that they were all caught on the way to deal with Senior Audjwa. So this is even worse than shadow streams. Super Chen was alarmed. Do you think this bunch of people will all die before they can even enter our number 60 high school's main gate? Wang Ling felt that this might really happen. Super Chen's mouth had been blessed before. I don't think so. Dopigwa broke out in a sweat. In any case, the people organized by the Demon Hunters Association this time are all elites. And their overall strength is who knows how many levels higher than shadow streams back then. They shouldn't be so unlucky. Also, there's not much time left until tomorrow. Since the school already knows about the plan, why haven't they suspended classes? You know our headmaster. If he knew that the other party wasn't a threat to our school, he wouldn't have applied to suspend classes. When Shadow Stream came, they didn't stop classes either, right? Dopeigwa spread his hands. But I heard that the headmaster is also having a headache now. What do you mean? Asked Little Peanut. Since the start of the semester, there's been a lot of trouble at our school. Now, a lot of parents from other classes have started to apply to drop out of school and transfer to other schools. Dopeigwa said, go take a look at number 59 high school's forum and you'll know. They're so happy, the headmaster directly issued a notice on the enrollment of transfer students. Everyone. Was it really that real? So didn't the headmaster send out a notice asking the teachers in charge of each class to coordinate with the teachers to conduct home visits overnight? Dopeigwa replied. Hearing this, everyone suddenly understood. If it hadn't been for Dopeigwa's gossip, they wouldn't have been able to connect the dots. So this was the truth of the matter. Everyone instantly felt reassured, because the reason for the home visits wasn't because of exam results or anything like that, but because of the school's safety. In some sense, number 60 High was taking the Demon Hunters Association incident so seriously because they didn't want any parents to cause a wave of students to drop out of school at this critical juncture. No. 60 High was now on the cusp of being promoted to a key high school. If they were made a fool of at this time, it would definitely be a huge blow to their reputation. However, looking at how lively the school was currently, no school had been more lively than number 60 High in all of Peiyuan District in the last few months. Other schools had exams every other day. As for number 60 High, apart from exams every other day, there was also something going on every other day. Do you think that Senior Ajua is hiding his strength? Dopeigwa suddenly asked when everyone was about to leave the classroom. What do you mean? Think about it. The outside world has always said that Senior Ajua is at the Golden Core stage, but the enemy he's facing now clearly isn't someone at the Golden Core stage, Dopeigwa said. So I'm guessing that Senior Ajua is hiding his strength. That must be it. Not necessarily. Maybe it's the Shifu behind Senior Ajua who has made a move? Isn't it always said online that Senior Ajua has a Shifu? Superchen said. Wang Ling. Superchen. There are so many experts in this world, our number 60 High definitely has experts too. Don't look at our teachers. Maybe one of them is a big shot. Wang Ling. Superchen. And I've always had a strong feeling that there's a big shot in our class. Chapter 678. Wang Ling had already found out through text messages that Ajua was coming for a home visit, and felt that Ajua had really handled the situation quite wittily this time. Knowing that number 60 high school was coming for a home visit, Wang Ling had simply accepted the job first. Otherwise the atmosphere would be really awkward if Teacher Pan really came to visit. Suddenly, Wang Ling had the urge to give Ajua a red packet. Of course, this red packet didn't refer to money. Wang Ling didn't have that much money, and Father Wang would find a way to dock his allowance. What this red packet actually referred to was equipment. Ajua's current outfit was a little terrible. Furthermore, after this incident, Wang Ling was deeply aware that he couldn't just let Ajua take the blame for him outside. This blame wasn't bad, but the quality of this blame itself had to be strong enough. The enemy's hail of bullets now was really too fierce. If things continued like this, sooner or later Ajua wouldn't be able to withstand it. Thus, Wang Ling felt that he should solve the problem at its core and upgrade this cheap disciple of his inside and out. Although it had only been a few months since Ajua had become Wang Ling's disciple, he had taken the blame for Wang Ling a lot over the years. Even if he didn't have any meritorious service, he had still put in a lot of hard work. Because of this incident, Wang Ling had seen a lot of negative news about Ajua online. As his Shifu, Wang Ling himself didn't feel too good about it. There were actually people who thought Ajua's realm was too low. When Wang Ling saw that comment, he took a deep breath. From that moment on, he had already decided to create a tailor-made cultivation technique for Ajua. It would help him cultivate faster. Ajua's talent was actually already high enough. At least in terms of cultivation, he was more talented than most people Wang Ling had ever met. It had to be said that while Ajua's current position was a scapegoat for Wang Ling, he had cultivated to the golden core stage before entering university that was entirely his own ability. And the most important thing was that Ajua rarely took pills. He was completely different from those rich kids who used tonics to forcibly increase their realms. Ajua had his own ability. He had never objected to this point. So in some sense, Wang Ling indeed felt that this disciple of his was very outstanding. When Ajua entered, there wasn't the slightest ripple in the Wang family's small villa. Number 60 High School had already sent a text message to Father and Mother Wang saying that they would send a teacher for a home visit to discuss some of the recent negative news about Number 60 High School, but when Father and Mother Wang learned that it was Ajua, the couple sitting on the sofa heaved long sighs of relief. Since Wang Ling had started school, the couple hadn't even gone to a parent-teacher conference. The most recent one had been attended by grenade-throwing senior Immortal. So when he heard that he was going to see his teacher, he felt a little nervous. Mother Wang and Father Wang sat up on the sofa with a bang. Mother Wang, I'll go cook. Father Wang, I'll go write. Wang Ling, Ajua. When Mother Wang walked into the kitchen, she didn't forget to look at Ajua. Little Juicy, stay here tonight and eat something. To be honest, Ajua was a little touched in his heart. This was purely treating him as one of their own. Wang Ling placed the cultivation technique which he had specially tailored for Ajua in his room on the table. It was called 33-Path Primordial Qi, and was a small derivative of a branch of Great Heavenly Tao. Even so, it went without saying how precious it was. Since it had something to do with Heavenly Tao, if it was divided into heaven, earth, black, and yellow, it would definitely belong to the heaven level category. Furthermore, this technique couldn't be bought in the outside world at all. That was because when Wang Ling gave it to Ajua, he would tailor it to suit Ajua's condition. With this technique, Ajua's cultivation speed would increase by leaps and bounds, because this 33-Path Primordial Qi itself was a technique which could accelerate the circulation of spirit energy in the body. The circulation of spirit energy was like a person's metabolism. The faster it circulated, the faster one's realm would change. Ajua had never expected that his Shifu would actually give him such a generous gift when he visited today. When he took the small exercise book from Wang Ling, his hands trembled, even though the packaging of this technique was a little crude, and it was the kind of exercise book used by students. The name of the technique was also unpretentiously written on the back of the lessons column in the exercise book. But when Ajua opened the exercise book, he could clearly see the things to pay attention to in cultivating this technique, as well as the most detailed explanations of each segment. And the most important thing was that Wang Ling had written all of this by hand. This thing was so precious that Ajua trembled all over with excitement, and he almost stuck out his tongue and fainted on the spot. At that moment, he deeply felt that he hadn't taken the blame for all these years in vain. Sure enough, if he followed Shifu Wang Ling, he would have meat to eat. Of course, what Ajua never expected was that this wasn't the only bomb his Shifu had dropped. After receiving the exercise book, Ajua immediately saw Wang Ling open the second exercise book, which was filled with all kinds of magic artifacts. Ajua was startled. What did this mean? There were so many magic artifacts. Was he allowed to choose? This was a king bomb. While Ajua was making a home visit to the Wang family. On the other side, a lot of people in the military tent side. This time, their Demon Hunters Association had actually lost 3 overseas returnee generals. As the chief commander of the revenge plan, Elder Ji Xing really couldn't escape the blame. But in the end, they still had to wait until the operation was over before they could seek President Bai's forgiveness. Right now, the first thing they had to consider was the big plan tomorrow, and then they had to think of a way to organize people to snatch Elder Yaren back. According to Elder Ji Xing's speculation, Elder Yaren was now in a half-dead state, which was why his soul mark was flickering. Now, excluding Elder Ming Ren, who was still giving Nine Tails psychotherapy in the entire military tent, including himself, there were only 11 people left in the Demon Hunters Association's available fighting strength. Elder Ji Xing dropped his forehead into his hand, feeling that this wasn't an ordinary headache. Getting drunk solves 1,000 worries. How about a drink? Chapter 679. Ajua opened the exercise book and looked at his Shifu Wang Ling's handwritten handwriting. The explanation of the technique was even more detailed than a textbook's. Although 33-path primordial qi was a very small branch of magic, it was still part of the 3,000 great spells, and the 3,000 great spells were something that had been branded in Wang Ling's mind like an instinct as he continued to grow. This technique actually wasn't very useful to Wang Ling himself, but it was a huge help to Ajua. In addition to speeding up the circulation of spirit energy, he could also use this technique to store spirit energy in the golden core inside his body. This reserve was like a reservoir. When he urgently needed spirit energy, he could open the floodgates at any time and release the spirit energy in the reservoir for his own use. Although he had only skimmed through it, Ajua was already deeply aware of how powerful this technique was. For the golden core stage, none of the similar techniques on the market could compare to this one, and were more suitable for Ajua to cultivate. He could only say that as expected of his Shifu. Ajua suddenly felt that his shameless decision to acknowledge Wang Ling as his Shifu back then had been the right one. Apart from the technique, Ajua also saw something else: the magic weapons listed in the second book by Wang Ling. Finally, apart from Long Johns and Long Johns, he could also have other protective magic treasures. Reading this, Ajua couldn't help feeling excited. The magic weapons listed in the second exercise book had also been carefully selected by Wang Ling. These were the most suitable magic weapons for Ajua at this stage, and basically, they were all magic treasures to save his life. The first magic weapon on the first page was the 5-star recommended Thunderous 9,000 boots. Reading this, Ajua couldn't help staring blankly. Somehow, he felt that the name of these boots was a little familiar. What did these boots have to do with the 3,000 Thunderous 9,000 spells? Of course, it wasn't just these boots. There were also many different styles of Taoist robes, undergarments, and even underwear. Ajua. Wang Ling stared at Ajua and raised his eyebrows slightly, meaning that Ajua could choose whatever he wanted. After he was done, he would look for the heavenly Tao to trade for materials, and then use the recipe for the 8 classes of divine weapons to forge something. It was rare for him to be this generous, because right now, there really wasn't anyone more suitable than Ajua to be his scapegoat. Hence, Ajua had to be kept safe. Although this disciple was cheap, Wang Ling had already decided to give him the most expensive set of equipment in order to make him last. From then on, Ajua would no longer be Ajua. Instead, it was an upgraded Ajua. While Ajua was choosing his self-defense equipment, Father Wang was also fighting on the other side. This matter had actually happened not long ago, and it was a rather vexing and infuriating matter. The love song, the Starry Skies Language of Love, that Father Wang had written for Mother Wang had been stolen by an extremely popular online live streamer. The other party downloaded the song privately and re-uploaded it to his homepage. He claimed that it was his own work and openly lip-synced it. The most important thing was that the fans of the streamer were actually clapping and cheering. They did not find anything strange about it at all. This infuriated Father Wang. He had written this song for Mother Wang. And the most important thing was that this singer's voice had clearly been sung by grenade-throwing senior Immortal. So how had it been stolen? No matter how much Father Wang thought about it, he couldn't figure it out. Online warfare was trending nowadays, and Father Wang had only fought against anti-fans on the novel platform before, so he wasn't afraid at all. In the end, the battlefield had to be transferred to the live streaming platform, which left Father Wang a little bewildered. Thus, after the incident, Father Wang's first reaction was to seek help from his novel's fan group. Although there was a hidden big shot in the fan group who had been lurking all year round, who had sent him cigars and fought for the monthly votes, this had just happened, and Father Wang didn't want to directly ask this big shot to make a move. The main thing was that Father Wang wanted to test how fierce his other novel fans were. If he didn't say anything about the book he had written for his wife being stolen, would he still be human? Thus, Father Wang made an official announcement in the fan group. Regarding Wolf Fong live streaming platform, Shadow Fool's live streamer singers institution, our side's attitude will not tolerate this. Fans, please support us. What? Wang Situ's song was stolen? Is it the latest, The Starry Skies Language of Love? That's right, brother Wang Situ wrote this song for sister-in-law, and Wang Situ wrote the lyrics. In the end, this shameless live streamer stole the song and even said he sang it. Look, I have a video here. Several fans immediately replied below. Father Wang was stunned. He had just announced this matter today. How did so many people know about it already? And the most frightening thing was that someone had actually recorded it. Father Wang immediately replied in the group, "Brother, you're good." This fan immediately replied, "When I heard this song, I thought it was very familiar, and then I immediately realized that it was brother Wang Situ's song. At the time, I was still wondering how a live streamer could sing exactly the same as the original song, and even the aura and vibrato were completely restored. That was too amazing." After that, I tipped this live streamer 1,000 HMY and asked him to sing it again. This time, I recorded it. After this fan said this, the fan group directly exploded. "Damn, brother, you're good. Pass, 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 pass. Then this is the evidence, right? It's real." Father Wang nodded. This video can indeed be used as evidence, but it's not enough at the moment. We need to find a professional organization to do some audio and sound comparisons. Apart from that, what I understand here is that this live streamer has a criminal record. Last year, it was revealed that he had lip-synced and stolen songs. Then what does Lord Wang Situ mean? Father Wang sent a short video of him slitting his neck. Then he sent a message in the group, "Screw him. Everyone, Father Wang." There are a lot of lip-syncing videos in his live stream room. You can use the music software's voice recognition function to compare the lip-syncing videos to the original singer. Then, take a video of this guy lip-syncing and send it to me along with the original music. I'll get someone to do an identification. At that moment, someone asked, is there a reward?" Father Wang laughed. "Anyone who submits evidence to me will get 10 updates." Everyone was shocked. Sure enough. Chapter 680. You wouldn't die if you didn't court death. This saying wasn't false at all. Some people were born to live, but others were born to court death. This lip-syncing live streamer singers institute had a previous record of stealing songs. This time, he was up to his old tricks to deceive the audience once again, and his behavior was truly outrageous. Even so, there was still a group of audience members who had been fooled into giving him gifts to support him. This incident reminded Father Wang of a skit called Selling Crutches. It turned out that there really were people in this world who would pay the other person back after being cheated. They had been duped by this bad live streamer in a flash. Actually, it wasn't that Father Wang couldn't understand the behavior of these fans. It was very clear that most of these fans who desperately supported their idols might also be diehard in reality and were unwilling to admit that they had followed the wrong idol. In most cases, it was their idols who ultimately paid the price for their fans' actions. Especially when the idols were unwilling to admit that they were wrong, the effect of protecting them to the death was even more frightening. Relying on lip-syncing the song, The Starry Skies Language of Love, in the live stream room, this live streamer had gained a large number of fans. Father Wang had yet to officially announce this song to the public. Although it had already been uploaded on the music platform, the music video was in fact still in the production stage, and it was still pending release on the platform. Furthermore, Father Wang had only released an audio recording in his fan group. But Father Wang hadn't expected that this audio recording would actually be stolen by this intentional live streamer. This was the most unlucky thing about this live streamer. This song-stealing live streamer, Singers Institute, probably couldn't have imagined that this online song, which couldn't be found online, was written by a guru in the author circle for his wife. And now, this live streamer was about to be bombarded by Father Wang's attack on Pingon City to save his wife Xiuqin. At 6:00 in the evening, Wolf Fong live streaming platform's live streamer, Singers Institute, was about to start a live stream. Wolf Fong live streaming platform was a live streaming platform that was about to go public. Not only did it have a large fan base, it also had a lot of daily users. Of course, it was still a level lower than Daoist Guang's Cultivation live streaming network, which was recognized as the #1 live streaming platform on the internet. However, most of the live broadcasts of the Cultivation Live Broadcasting Network are outdoor and game programs. Programs like singing are not popular on such a live broadcasting network. In contrast, the entertainment industry of the Wolf Fong Live Broadcasting platform is much more developed. Each platform had its own unique characteristics. This was also a way for the platforms to compete with each other. When Father Wang was stuck, he liked to watch live streams for inspiration. That funny female live streamer Little Xian from before was on the Cultivation live streaming network. Although Father Wang had his own big shot account on almost all the live streaming platforms, he spent the most time and gave the most gifts on the Cultivation live streaming network. The battlefield this time was on Wolf Fong live streaming platform. To be honest, Father Wang really didn't know what to do at first. After all, the enemy's battlefield was different. But now, the collective brainpower of the fans gave Father Wang a lot of confidence. When he went on the air that night, the anchor wore a half mask as usual, covering the upper half of his face. Visually, he looked a little more mysterious, and it also covered his sunken nose bridge and his big nose, which was like a garlic clove. Yang Zhong stood in front of the mirror and put on his mask. He looked at himself in the mirror through the mask. His entire person seemed to be different. Even his spirit was different. He immediately straightened his back and became radiant with energy. It was as if this mask could completely bury his hypocrisy, vanity, and rotten spirit and achieve the suggestive effect of brainwashing. No one knew what kind of person this half-masked little brother who looked pretty good was, and no one knew what kind of ugly appearance he had under the mask. Before the official live broadcast, Yang Zhong used his Singers Institute live streamer account to investigate the data in the background. Because he had lip-synced the Starry Skies language of love to the camera the day before, he hadn't expected that when he opened the data in the background today, his overall data would soar. His fans had increased by 30,000. His subscriptions had increased by 100,000. The most important thing was the gifts he had received in the live stream room. His earnings from lip-syncing this song were actually more than his total earnings in a month. It had only been a few days. Yang Zhong stared at the data in the background and could not help but feel excited. He had not gone to the computer today, and this data made Yang Zhong very happy. Just as he was about to start the live broadcast, Yang Zhong received a call from his guild. It was a call from Lang Bei, the president of his guild, Shadow Fool. Yang Zhong picked up the phone and President Lang Bei smiled from ear to ear. Little Yang, you did well. You actually earned 300,000 the day before yesterday. More than you earned in a month in the past. Haha. Yang Zhong laughed. I found this audio by accident. It's quite similar to the voice of the substitute singer I found before. The name of this audio file is the Starry Skies language of love, but I searched it online and didn't find this song. It was probably accidentally leaked by some singer. That's great. Since it hasn't been released on the platform, let's release this song and say that it's ours. Sure. Anyway, no one has released it now. Even if it's brought up in the end, we have the advantage in time. We have the initiative now. If we find an album company to release it first, no one will be able to sue us. Yang Zhong laughed sinisterly in his heart. In this era of the fan economy, it was really too easy to earn money from fans, which made him feel incomparably happy. He had earned a lot in the last 2 days, and Yang Zhong had a very strong feeling that he was going to be popular. In all his years of live broadcasting, he had never had such a strong premonition. After the call, Yang Zhong sat back in his seat, turned on the camera, and turned on the beautifying function to the maximum. He then adjusted the angle of his crazy mic to cover his Adam's apple. Because the throat hardly moved when lip-syncing, it would be very easy for people to notice if his entire neck was exposed. I wonder how much money I can make today? Yang Zhong smiled and clicked the Start Live Broadcast button. As he had expected, The number of people in the live broadcast room began to soar. Then he glanced at the bullet screen. Netizen captain of Wang Situ's detonation team, light incense. Netizen, platoon leader of Wang Situ's detonation team, light incense, light incense. The live streamer is dead. Netizen, company commander of Wang Situ's detonation team, incense warning. Netizen, company commander of Wang Situ's detonation team, pour a bottle of sweet potato wine to comfort the soul of the deceased live streamer in heaven. Chapter 681. What was going on? Yang Zhong hadn't expected to be attacked by a water army as soon as he went live today. The question was, where had this water army come from? Could it be that a guild war had started again? Guild wars were very common in the live streamer circle, especially in the entertainment industry of live streaming platforms. In order to consolidate their power, various guilds had signed a lot of singers in the channel to form a team. It was also common for singers from different teams to arm wrestle with each other behind the scenes. Shadow Fool Guild had a lot of hostile guilds in Wolf Fong's live streaming circle, so Yang Zhong guessed that it was most likely the other guilds who had become envious after seeing the profits from his live streaming yesterday and had hired a water army to attack him. Wang Situ? Who was Wang Situ? Was there such a singer? He had never even heard of him. Just as Yang Zhong was feeling very puzzled, President Lang Bei sent a message in the chat group. Because the numbers in the live stream room had grown too abnormally today, the number of people who had been watching the live stream room before the live stream had already exceeded tens of thousands. If it was a hired water army, there would usually only be a few hundred of them, and only 100 or so people would repeatedly leave negative comments on the bullet screen. It would be over if they were all banned. But now, tens of thousands of people were besieging the live stream room. Only Commander Li Yunlong had seen this kind of situation when he had attacked Pingon District. So the question was, who on earth was this Wang Situ? In the chat group, Lang Bei asked anxiously, "What's going on? Who is this Wang Situ?" Under his mask, Yang Zhong frowned and a drop of cold sweat rolled down his cheek as he quickly replied, "I just looked at the bullet screen and guessed that it might be a fan of the original owner of the audio who came to our live stream room to blow it up." Hearing this, Lang Bei was startled. Such a coincidence? They had only mentioned the audio before the live stream, and after hanging up the phone, President Lang Bei had already arranged for a company that specialized in releasing music to release the song online for a limited time. Seeing that the number of people in the live stream room was going to exceed 500,000 in the 5 minutes he had been streaming, Yang Zhong suddenly panicked. What do we do now? He was just a small live streamer who couldn't sing, so he had to buy other people's dry voices to lip-sync his fans. Yang Zhong had thought about the day when he would be exposed, but he hadn't expected it to come so soon. Therefore, Yang Zhong felt a little overwhelmed in the face of such a huge commotion. Calm down the fans in the live streaming room. Ban them when they need to. I'll arrange for someone to upload the song as soon as possible. Since this song has never been released on the internet, we'll be in the right if we release it first. President Lang Bei was thinking of a solution. Didn't we have a singer helping us before? Contact him and ask him to sing this song without any accompaniment. Record his voice. You can lip-sync it in the live broadcast room. Remember to act like it. Don't get caught. Yang Zhong nodded. The conversation with President Lang Bei was interrupted. Zhong Lang contacted the singer who had lip-synced for him. He had been so flustered that he had almost forgotten that he still had this trump card up his sleeve. And this singer was none other than Tang Yuning, the popular singer who sang Old Boys a while ago. The vagrant singer whom he had helped in Boss Tan's late-night dining hall. "Brother Tang? I have a song here, can you sing it for me?" Yang Zhong sent a message to Tang Yuning. On the other side, Tang Yuning fell silent after receiving another message from Yang Zhong. After a long while, he typed out 2 words, "Again." Yang Zhong thought for a bit before replying, "Brother Tang, this really is the last time? I won't sing anymore, I'm going to become a talk show live streamer. You know my family's circumstances. My dad is bedridden, and my mom passed away not long after I was born. I have a younger brother at home, and I need to pay for his schooling. We've known each other for a while, Can't you help me one last time? Tang Yuning was silent. But after you were exposed, you swore to the audience and your fans that you wouldn't steal any more songs and lip sync. Was all that fake? Brother Tang, your voice is really similar to the voice of the singer of the audio I found recently. As long as we don't say anything, no one will know. This really is the last time. Yang Zhong knew that this was a serious matter. If Tang Yuning didn't help him this time, his acting career would be over. Apologize? There was no way he would apologize. In the previous incident, he had already apologized once. Yang Zhong clearly remembered that he had told the audience that in the future, the works he would perform in the live broadcasts would all be his own works. He would no longer borrow the music of other artists and would no longer disappoint those who liked him. He was not a hypocrite. If something happened today and he couldn't withstand the pressure to apologize, then his future would be ruined. Although he had already looked for Tang Yuning and told him that he wouldn't bother him anymore, Yang Zhong really felt that he had reached a dead end. Brother Tang, you have to help me with this matter. Yang Zhong made another request. I know you're on the rise now, but before, Brother Tang, you have to remember that when you were a street singer, I specially supported you. And before that, I also left some screenshots of our transactions. Tang Yuning smiled. Are you threatening me? Yang Zhong, no, not threatening. I'm begging. Tang Yuning gritted his teeth. I chose to help you back then because I knew your family was in trouble and I didn't have any money. If I really wanted your money, I would have directly split the profits with you for the live stream, instead of selling you 50 HNY for a capella. Tang Yuning was truly furious. He hadn't expected Yang Zhong to threaten him like this. Relying on his own voice, Yang Zhong had become popular online, gained popularity and fans. Now, Yang Zhong actually didn't hesitate to use their previous transaction records to threaten him and help him deceive the audience. How could there be such a person in the world? Tang Yuning was so angry that he directly closed the chat window and hung up on his phone. He had a lot of benefactors, but not Yang Zhong. For Tang Yuning, his benefactors were late-night dining hall's owner, Boss Tan, and the youngster who had sold him a song at a low price back then and his father, but now, Tang Yuning himself was in deep trouble because of Yang Zhong. The moment he was threatened by Yang Zhong, Tang Yuning realized that things couldn't go on like this. Chapter 682. Tang Yuning had already endured this for a long time. He had always indulged Yang Zhong, but in the end, the other party had turned into an ingrate who would only reach out to him out of habit. This was something that Tang Yuning could never accept or forgive. Tang Yuning had heard many stories about the farmer and the snake, but he had never thought that one day it would actually happen to him. Yang Zhong had almost driven him crazy in the last few months. This wasn't the first time Yang Zhong had humbly begged him, but it was the first time he had used blackmail to ask him to help him deceive an audience. Tang Yuning felt that he had been too muddle-headed to actually help this kind of person. Tang Yuning got up from his computer and looked at himself in the mirror. Fatigue was written all over his face, and he had a scraggly beard and messy hair. He was already completely different from the street-wandering singer Tang Yuning who had relied purely on his work to survive. This wasn't the look Tang Yuning wanted. This was the look of the kind of person he had once hated the most. After the song Old Boys became popular, Tang Yuning had been constantly tormented and struggling in his heart because of Yang Zhong, and hadn't gone out for a very long time. But just now, Tang Yuning already had an answer. He used a small razor to shave his beard clean, and shaved his hair, leaving a clean buzz cut. Then he took out his phone and dialed his agent's number. Brother Tian? I think I understand. Hearing the voice, the agent was blank for a moment before he heaved a long sigh of relief. It's good that you understand. I've decided to expose him. All right, that's for the best. This, Brother Tunfo nodded. I've long found that singers institute an eyesore. They sing every day with half an S&M mask on. It's like they're giving a philosophy concert. Tang Yuning. Elsewhere, in Father Wang's fan group, fans were complaining about the front-line battlefield one after another. A lot of fans were furious when they heard that Father Wang's, the Starry Skies language of love, had been stolen, and they formed groups to blow things up one after another. A lot of people had registered several accounts, but they hadn't started cursing. They had only asked if the live streamer had stolen the song and had been directly banned by the moderator for 7 days. Now, the fan group was full of complaints. Some of the enemy fans were really too scary, and they were too protective of their owner. As the saying went, what kind of person would have what kind of fans? Father Wong had done a search on this live streamer before. After being exposed for lip-syncing last year, he initially denied it in all sorts of ways. In the end, he couldn't withstand the pressure of public opinion and was forced to apologize to the public. For those who had experienced this before, the skin of Singers Institute was probably thicker than the city walls. Simply going to their live stream to question them would not give them any advantage at all. Father Wong opened Singers Institute's live stream room. When he had watched it yesterday, the number of people online had still been around 30,000. In the end, after he announced this matter in his fan group, the number of people in this guy's live stream room was now almost breaking 600,000. The fighting power of my fans is still quite strong. Father Wong was delighted in his heart as he casually scrolled through the bullet messages in the live stream room. A few fans with the nameplates of Dean defended him one after another. How could our Dean lip sync? Otherwise, how could he explain his previous a cappella singing? Was it lip syncing as well? Don't mislead the new audience. Father Wong, so what if you lip sync? I like the Dean because I like to see him flirt with girls, but I don't like to listen to him sing. What does lip syncing and stealing songs have to do with me? I'm not listening, tortoise chanting scriptures. Father Wong, why are there so many water armies today? With all due respect, what on earth is this Wong Situ? I've never heard of this singer before. Is he here to leech off our Dean's popularity? The corners of Father Wong's mouth were already twitching uncontrollably. This was really going too far. He was the Grand Cultivation Chinese Network's top guru. Did he need to leech off a small singer's popularity? But what left Father Wong even more speechless was yet to come. At that moment, the administrator typed in the public screen, Dean's throat isn't feeling well today, so he won't be singing in the live stream today. He'll take a short break and chat with everyone. If you have any songs you want to listen to, you can leave a message on the public screen first. I'll record them down and Dean will sing them to compensate everyone later in the live stream. It was very obvious that this was a delaying tactic. Because there were too many people in the live stream room now, the other party was worried that he would give himself away while singing in front of so many people. If they caught any loopholes in this thing, there would definitely be no way to explain himself. Thus, Father Wong concluded that the other party definitely wanted to use this method to gloss over today's live stream and then take his time to think about it after the live stream. And the most frightening thing was that these fans in the live stream room actually believed him. Sob, sob, sob. Great Dean, rest well, I love listening to you sing the most. If your throat isn't good, don't sing, we all understand. Heavens! Great Dean's throat was kissed by an angel. He'll definitely be fine. Drink more hot water. Looking at these bullet messages, Father Wong was so angry he almost spat out blood. There were really too many fans who had been deceived. Even if his song hadn't been stolen, Father Wong felt that he had to take this matter seriously. He couldn't let this kind of person continue to get away with it. Father Wong said in the fan group, "Can anyone find out the real identity of this live streamer? Just his name and phone number will do. I'll give you 10 minutes in exchange." Less than 10 seconds after he said that, a fan called Eggy Saro in the fan group immediately replied, Yang Zhong, male, 176 centimeters tall, phone number 139-188-XXXXX, address, Lane 872 Yunmen West Road, Songhai City. Bloody hell, Brother Egg, you found someone just like that? A lot of the fans cried out in surprise. It wasn't until that moment that Father Wong realized that there really was a hidden big shot in his fan group. How much time had passed, and he had even found out the address. Just as the rest of the fans were sighing over this Brother Egg battle, Brother Egg also replied very modestly, "This is all I can do to help. I actually have an ID card, but this isn't very good. Everyone, don't call this number to harass him. Let our big brother communicate with this live streamer first. Okay. No problem. For a moment, a lot of people in the fan group responded. At that moment, someone asked a question, but Brother Egg, how did you find out all this? Do you have resources? Of course I have to keep this a secret. This, Brother Ga smiled. It's mainly because I'm used to investigating people. I have a nephew who sometimes comes to ask me all sorts of questions. Nephew? That's right, his surname is Gua, and he's still in high school. Chapter 683. From the start of the broadcast until now, it had been a full hour. The live broadcast room of Singers Institute had already banned more than 1,000 people. A moderator with the nickname Mr. Lee and another, Zhang Fei, did not care about the consequences. As long as the keywords lip-syncing and theft were mentioned, they would be banned for 7 days. Even some of their own fans who brought their nameplates to inquire about the situation were subjected to the same treatment. Father Wang stared at the live broadcast room speechlessly and helplessly. However, this live streamer didn't seem to be the least bit flustered. That pitch-black half-mask completely concealed the subtle fluctuations in his eyes. Father Wang now seemed to understand a little why this live streamer wore a mask for the live broadcast, because he didn't have a face. An hour into the live broadcast, Father Wang started to see Yang Zhong interact with the fans in the live broadcast room. So everyone thinks the Starry Sky's Language of Love is a good song? Father Wang thought that this guy was finally going to find his conscience and apologize, but who knew that the other party would suddenly change his tune? Actually, it's because the song is well written and I sing it well. That's right. As the original singer of this song, my singing is really outstanding. Father Wang, oh, that's right, I'm going to upload this song to the music platform right away. I hope everyone can download Singers Institute album when the time comes. There's no version of this song on the online platform yet because I haven't uploaded it yet. After we upload the album later, I hope everyone will download it and support us. If you like it, follow and favorite it, then comment on it. NetEase Cloud Music has it. Just search for The Starry Sky's Language of Love directly. Hearing this, Father Wang felt the urge to smash the keyboard for the first time. He hadn't had this thought when he had been stuck, but after hearing the other party's deceptive and somewhat despicable tone, Father Wang was really infuriated. Father Wang himself was also shocked. He couldn't understand how a person could be so thick-skinned. The most important thing was that this guy actually wanted to upload it before him. This guy was probably crazy. This was a blatant infringement. On the side, Lai Mengmeng was also amazed when he saw this. If this person does this, he'll probably be sued, right? Definitely. Father Wang said, the copyright to this song is mine. What he's doing is considered theft. Furthermore, it's for commercial use. If it involves a huge amount of money, I'm afraid he'll have to go to jail for several years. However, I don't think he has the guts to do so alone. I'm afraid that the guild backing him is helping him. Lai Mengmeng nodded. I think so too. This person doesn't look very old. There's no way he would have such guts. Moreover, how many people had been sealed? In Lai Mengmeng's eyes, the two moderators in the livestream room were no different from lunatics. They were basically the kind of people who would ban anyone the moment they appeared, regardless of the circumstances. It didn't matter if you were asking questions from the perspective of a bystander or asking for an explanation from the perspective of a fan, as long as you mentioned this matter, you would be banned. Previously, Lai Mengmeng had opened an account to comment on the livestream, but he had typed a question mark and was banned for 7 days straight away. Really, I've never seen such a shameless person. Lai Mengmeng sighed sincerely. Yeah, this method of denying is really shameless. Compared to my novel's slow update and sloppy word count, I'm practically a clean and refreshing white lotus. Lai Mengmeng. The matter of this live streamer's copyright infringement wasn't over yet, and Father Wang knew that he needed to come up with more forceful methods. The key now was to collect evidence of the other party's copyright infringement as well as to get the relevant copyright certification procedures for the song, The Starry Sky's Language of Love, in place as soon as possible. Given that Father Wang had decided not to use that big shot behind him, this was bound to be a longer battle than usual, and one that would revolve around fans from different circles on both sides. Which side was stronger between fans of the live stream circle and fans of the novel? Father Wang was really looking forward to seeing, on the other side, Audiobook had already picked out a full set of equipment for himself. The shoes, coat, underwear, socks, and even underwear he was wearing were all genuine magic treasures, and most importantly, he had never heard of any of them before. It could only be said that Shifu was indeed unconventional. Even the magic treasures he used were different from those on the market. Basically, all magic treasures now had a magic treasure software app that could be ranked online, but the magic treasures Wang Ling had given him didn't have any information. Wang Ling had picked them out from the original 8 classes of divine weapons. The 8 classes of divine weapons on the market were all incomplete versions, and a lot of the data was incomplete, so they couldn't be used to enter into the magic treasure software at all. Thus, the magic treasures on the original 8 classes of divine weapons couldn't be found in the online magic treasure software at all. After Audiobook had picked out the magic treasures he wanted, Wang Ling silently noted down their names, then put the exercise book away. He would use this exercise book later to exchange materials with the Heavenly Tao to make magic treasures. Furthermore, Wang Ling had deliberately written the handwriting in the exercise book very nicely so that he could trade it with the Heavenly Tao for resources of equal value. Furthermore, there were a lot of magic treasures to make this time, and Wang Ling felt that there might be a lack of materials. He wondered if the Heavenly Tao would accept copies. Wang Ling cupped his chin in contemplation. Heavenly Tao. It was July 25th on Tuesday in the 14th week of the semester. It was the day when the overseas returnee elites of the Demon Hunters Association would attack number 60 high school, but number 60 high school was as calm as ever without the slightest ripple. At the pancake stall at the school gate, old Uncle Chio was still full of enthusiasm as he served the students early in the morning. As an old man who sold pancakes at number 60 High's school gate all year round, he had most likely heard some rumors about number 60 High. As he passed by, Super Chin bought a pancake and put 5 yuan in the money box next to the old man's cart. "Uncle, keep the money." "Got it, just leave it there." Old Chio nodded and spread a layer of batter on the pancake cart with exceptional proficiency. After spreading it out evenly, he directly cracked 2 eggs on it. Super Chin, "Uncle, I only gave you the money for 1 egg." "Old Chio, it's fine, there's an event today, buy 1 get 1 free." Super Chin, "By the way, Uncle, do you know that some criminals claim to be attacking our school today?" Old Chio raised his eyebrows. "You mean the Demon Hunters Association?" Super Chin nodded. "That's right. It's that Demon Hunters Association. Uncle, aren't you afraid? You're so close to the school, what if you get involved?" Old Chio, "What's there to be afraid of? I've been selling pancakes at your school gate for so many years, I've seen all kinds of monsters." Super Chin, this was indeed the truth. Old Chio had been selling pancakes at number 60 High School's gate for many years, and it was said that the seniors from previous years had all seen him. And most importantly, almost everyone at number 60 High School had bought Old Chio's pancakes. Old Lee at the school gate especially loved them. "Old Chio, the grass on the grave of that shadow stream, who came to pick a fight with your school a few months ago, is it taller than a person now?" Chapter 684. Uncle Chio had been at number 60 High for a long time, which was obvious to everyone at number 60 High. This was an old man who had witnessed the hardships of number 60 High's history. Some people said that the reason number 60 High had been able to survive so many disasters without collapsing was partly because of Uncle Chio. The truth was that there had been a lot of legends about Uncle Chio over the years, at least in number 60 High's Tieba circle. Many people felt that Uncle Chio was a hidden expert with a mysterious identity. Moreover, there were several times when people saw Uncle Chio making pancakes. He could even crack an egg and create a yin-yang symbol. It was also because of this that legends about Uncle Chio could be said to be endless, and there were all kinds of rumors on the internet. Although Wang Ling hadn't been at school for long, he had eaten Uncle Chio's fruit jianbing before. Furthermore, He felt that it was currently the best thing he had eaten apart from crispy noodle snacks. The main point was that the 5 yuan fruit jianbing was full of ingredients: sweet sauce, chili, eggs, crackers, youtiao, tenderloin, sausages. It had everything. When he arrived at school that morning, he happened to see Super Chin buying fruit jianbing. After thinking for a bit, he also fished out 5 yuan to buy one. "Wang Ling, you're also here to buy pancakes?" Super Chin greeted him as he nibbled on a freshly baked fruit jianbing. Today, Uncle Chiu was holding an event. Buy one, get one free. Just like when he had made Super Chin pancakes before, Uncle Chiu directly cracked 2 eggs. In the end, 4 egg yolks popped out. These 2 eggs were actually double yolks. Wang Ling, Uncle Chiu was shocked, and so was Super Chin. What kind of operation was this? Uncle Chiu smiled. This student's luck is quite good. After the bread was served, Uncle Chiu asked, "Classmate, do you want fried dough sticks or crispy bread?" Wang Ling took out a pack of crispy noodle snacks from his pocket, split it in half, and handed it to Uncle Chiu. "Uncle Chiu, today, the morning at number 60 high school was quieter than they had imagined. It had already been a whole night since the Demon Hunters Association's notice of attack broke out yesterday. Last night, number 60 high had sent a lot of teachers out for emergency home visits to carry out all kinds of coordination and pacification work. But even so, there were still some parents who chose to ask for leave for their children and did not come to school. As for how many parents would choose to transfer schools after this incident, that wasn't something he could estimate. In the beginning, Wang Ling had chosen number 60 high for the sake of a peaceful study life. In all aspects, whether it was its geographical location, school history, or overall evaluation results, number 60 high actually looked mediocre compared with other ordinary high schools. But the damnable thing was that what had happened in the first 10 or so weeks of school made number 60 high not seem like an ordinary school at all. Would the Demon Hunters Association's attack proceed smoothly? Wang Ling felt that this was a question mark, because his eyelid warning had stopped. On the other side, Father Wang was still engaged in a battle with Live Streamer Singers Institute who had stolen songs, and the fans on both sides had escalated the situation further. In addition to the many fans who supported Father Wang and boycotted live streamers who stole songs, there was also a key figure who had directly caused this war to escalate to a white-hot state. This person was none other than Taoist Guang, who had just entered the live streaming circle as a live streamer in the last few weeks. Taoist Guang was now the #1 all-around big brother on the Cultivation live streaming platform. In just a few short weeks, he had accumulated millions of fans, directly breaking the website's previous history. Now, as long as Taoist Guang started a live stream, his popularity would directly soar to more than 10 million in less than 10 minutes. The reason why Taoist Guang could become so popular was partly due to timing and luck, and partly because he had created this small island himself. Every day, he could think of new ways to live stream material for the audience to live stream nonstop. He could even create fake spirit beasts made of clay on the island to maximize the effect of the program. It was very normal for live streamers to create program effects, but even if they wanted to do so, they had to ensure that they had the ability to do so. In the end, relying on crooked methods wasn't the right way to go. After learning that Father Wang's song had been infringed, Taoist Guang's attitude was very clear. Not only did he change the title of his live stream room, he directly changed it to Wolf Fong Live Streaming Platform, Film Entertainment Thing, Steals Songs and Lip Syncs. He even publicly posted on Weibo about stealing songs and lip singing. This was the fuse that ignited the whole incident. Internally, Taoist Guang knew that this senior Wang was Ling Zhenren's father, so how could he be an ordinary person? Taoist Guang would definitely stand on Father Wang's side without even thinking about it. But there was no way Taoist Guang would explain this to the outside world, so after obtaining Father Wang's permission, Taoist Guang directly announced something to the public. Currently, the person with the ID has 3 days and 2 sleeps been updated today, and who was called Brother Sleep by many water friends in the live stream room was the famous guru author Wang Sid himself. When this news came out, it wasn't just the live stream circle, but also the novel circle exploded. Damn, so this person is Wang Situ? Wang Situ is also a fan of Brother's Sleep? Hee hee, I'm afraid that live streamer is done for. Not only has he offended Wang Situ, he's also offended Lord Island. Wang Situ has given Lord Island so many gifts, their relationship definitely isn't ordinary. Thus, as a live streamer on another platform, Taoist Guang had even more reason to help hammer that live streamer, Singers Institute, for stealing songs. Now, Taoist Guang was the big brother of the cultivation livestream platform, while Father Wang was a famous internet guru. If these two people joined hands to hammer a live streamer, it was basically a declaration that this live streamer was done for. Lai Mengmeng stared at the screen and sighed. This person is also stubborn. Wouldn't it have been over if he had apologized earlier? Some people won't shed tears until they see the coffin, you don't understand. Father Wang sighed. If you don't believe me, look. Father Wang opened the live streamer's live stream room and saw that the other party was sitting inside as if nothing had happened, completely ignoring the matter of stealing songs and lip-singing. This person is a little bold. Lai Mengmeng was speechless. He's only good at playing dead. This person was the same last year. When he ran into trouble, he played dead and didn't respond. Then after a while, the people hammering him got tired and slowly stopped pursuing the matter. But the problem is that he's never met someone who's stubborn. Father Wang laughed. Daring to steal a song I gave to my wife, I think this guy doesn't want to live anymore. What do you want to do? Lai Mengmeng asked. Chapter 685. Yang Zhong didn't live stream that day, and instead used his illness as an excuse to ask the audience in the live stream room for a day off. However, the moderators in the live stream room didn't ask for a day off. Moderators, Mr. Li, and Zhang Fei, continued to ban people, and in less than 2 days, they had banned more than 10,000 people, basically all of whom were onlookers who had learned about this from Father Wang. It had always been a major characteristic of netizens to join in on the fun. Although the audiences in the novel circle and the live stream circle were different, the users were of similar ages, so this news was very sweet for the onlookers in both circles. Yang Zhong was well aware that he was now in the teeth of the storm, so it was actually very important for him to insist that he hadn't stolen the song and temporarily avoid the limelight. This was what they had done to deal with the crisis last year, and the results had been very good. But this time, Yang Zhong had underestimated the power of Cultivation Chinese Network's veteran guru author, Wang Situ. After Taoist Guang's support last night, Yang Zhong already felt that it would be hard for him to turn things around. President, what should we do now? He had no choice but to ask Lang Bei for help. Shadow Fool Guild wasn't a small guild. It had over 100 signed artists, and he was one of them. Yang Zhong had always believed that the president wouldn't give up on him so easily. This year, he had made a lot of money for Shadow Fool by stealing songs and lip-syncing. Furthermore, it was Shadow Fool who had specially signed him after spending hundreds of thousands of yuan in compensation for the accident last year. Yang Zhong had always felt that this guild had feelings for him and wouldn't give up on him so easily. On the other end of the line, Shadow Fool Guild's president Lang Bei no longer sounded as confident as he had at the beginning. This was because the two people they had offended this time both had a huge number of fans, and it would actually be very difficult for them to contend with them if things went on like this. The truth was that before he picked up the phone, President Lang Bei was still weighing the stakes. Shadow Fool Guild wasn't a charity guild, but a live stream guild. With so many people to support, it was all about profit. Last year, Shadow Fool had signed Yang Zhong again despite the criticism, and had even paid a huge sum of money to pay off his former guild's compensation for his commercial value. But now, they were in the teeth of the storm. Every move was much more difficult than last year's. Don't worry. We've already uploaded the album first. You can take a screenshot and post it on Weibo. First, stabilize your fans. That's the most important thing. President Lang Bei said, as for Wang Situ, I've already contacted the Cultivation Chinese Network and asked for his contact information. I'll talk to him in detail later. If this matter can be settled privately, both sides can send a message to clarify the situation, and it can be a perfect ending. Compared to last year, you've gained a huge number of fans. All right. Thank you, President. Guild leader, you must help me this time. Hearing President Lang Bei's words, Yang Zhong was relieved. As long as his backer hadn't abandoned him, there was still room for redemption. On the other side, after the call ended, President Lang Bei, who was sitting in his office, rubbed his eyes and felt a deep headache. Lord President, are you still not going to give up on him? Asked a secretary dressed in revealing clothes. It's too early to give up now. He still has some value. President Lang Bei muttered to himself, although this matter has blown up and it's basically impossible for us to clean it up, if we can reach a private settlement with that Mr. Wang Situ, that would definitely be the best for us. The secretary in revealing clothes understood. It was all because President Lang Bei felt that Yang Zhong still had some value. This year, Shadow Fool Guild had made a lot of money from Yang Zhong's commercial value. Although the live stream room had been in the teeth of the storm these days, it had also received a lot of gift income. A lot of loyal fans didn't hesitate to spend huge sums of money to send small gifts like crazy in the live stream room in order to cover up the negative and questioning bullet messages. Then what should we do next? Asked the scantily clad secretary. It's very simple. President Lang Bei said, contact Wang Situ and that Taoist Guang first. Ask them what they think about this matter. If they just want compensation, we can pay it on Yang Zhong's behalf. Of course, if it's a sky-high price, that's another matter. Then should we give up on him? When that time comes, of course we can only give up on him. President Lang Bei said, Yang Zhong isn't clean to begin with. If it wasn't for the fact that he still has some commercial value, I would have terminated the contract with him long ago. To me, he's just a pawn that can be discarded at any time. Lord President, you really don't give us any face. The secretary in revealing clothes smiled slightly, went straight to President Lang Bei's side, and then sat down on his lap. At that moment, the secretary's cell phone rang. President Lang Bei hugged the secretary. Who's calling? An express delivery. The secretary directly turned on the hands-free function. Then, a voice came through the phone. Is this Mr. Shin? Your express delivery has arrived. The secretary in revealing clothes stood up. All right, I'll go get it right away. Elsewhere, number 60 High was still as calm as ever. It had already been a long time since the Demon Hunters Association's grand plan to attack. But it was almost noon, and there was still no movement from those so-called overseas returnees elites of the Demon Hunters Association. Many number 60 High students started to mock them in their class groups and tieba. Are they coming or not? If they don't, we're going to have lunch. Seriously, they go back on their word. We've been so nervous for so long. What's wrong with these people? They're worse than Shadowstream. Back then, when Shadowstream came, at least they were able to enter the school. Don't tell me this bunch can't even enter the main gate of number 60 High? Wang Ling quietly glanced at the messages in Tieba and the class group, and also looked out the window with a strange expression. The sun was exceptionally bright today, there was no sign of a storm at all. What on earth was going on? He was also puzzled. His eyelid had clearly twitched earlier, but it had suddenly stopped. Could something have happened to the other side? Stop waiting, do what you need to do and eat. Super Chin couldn't help laughing. I heard that Mother One held a food tasting event for the parents at number 60 High a while ago, and it seems that there was only one parent who showed up. He even packed some fried meatballs when he left. Say, if this parent was from the Demon Hunters Association and brought the meatballs back, would that group of people be directly poisoned to death? Chapter 686. When Elder Ji Xing woke up, his whole body ached and he didn't even have the strength to stand up. Cold, endless cold pierced into his bones, making him feel extremely afraid. What on earth had happened yesterday? Elder Ji Xing couldn't remember. His body was enveloped by a strong sense of exhaustion, and it was as if his bones had gone soft. His whole body had sunk into a semi-paralyzed state. He couldn't get up at all. Had he been poisoned? How was that possible? Elder Ji Xing closed his eyes and tried to circulate his spirit energy to check out his surroundings, but halfway through, it actually got stuck in his golden core. He could still circulate his spirit energy, which meant that he hadn't been poisoned. At the very least, he could still circulate his spirit energy. If it had been an extremely strong poison, all his meridians would definitely have been directly sealed off, and he wouldn't have been able to circulate his spirit energy normally. Taking a deep breath, Elder Ji Xing tried to use his spirit energy to break through the shackles of his golden core. This was very risky, because whether he succeeded or not, forcibly using spirit energy to break through the shackles in his body would definitely cause very serious internal injuries. And now, Elder Ji Xing's injuries were already very serious. But Elder Ji Xing had no choice but to do it, because he had to understand what on earth was going on. At this thought, Elder Ji Xing gritted his teeth. Enduring the pain in his body, he started to exert force on his golden core. It was an extremely uncomfortable feeling, like an adult suffering from constipation, and Elder Ji Xing's entire face turned red. In the end, even the blue veins on his forehead bulged. A man of the Demon Hunters Association, he would never admit defeat. A few minutes later, Elder Ji Xing suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood with a wah sound. At this point, he had already broken through the shackles of his golden core and could circulate his spirit energy normally. However, the internal injuries caused by breaking through the shackles made him feel extremely uncomfortable. He couldn't move a muscle now, and he couldn't even take out the first aid pills he had prepared on him. This was the most infuriating part. Sometimes, the most tragic thing in life wasn't when a person died with no money to spend, but when a person was about to die and couldn't take medicine. One step at a time, Elder Ji Xing took a deep breath and did his best to calm down. Now wasn't the time to get angry, because getting angry would only worsen his injuries. At that moment, his spirit energy started to circulate normally, and Elder Ji Xing finally relied on a cultivator's spiritual senses to see what was going on around the military tent. Everyone had fallen. Moreover, there were even some elders who had completely lost their auras and directly died. The breathing of the surviving elders was also very weak. Elder Ji Xing was extremely stunned. What the hell was going on? How did they get wiped out so suddenly? But what was even more inconceivable was that Elder Ji Xing realized that he couldn't recall what had happened last night at all. It seemed like his memory was a little broken. At that moment, Elder Ji Xing's face was snow-white and he was drenched in cold sweat. He really couldn't imagine what kind of almighty they had offended to actually go this far. They were the elite members of the Demon Hunters Association groomed overseas. The weakest were itinerant immortal experts, but at that moment, some had fainted and some had suddenly died. In the blink of an eye, they had been completely wiped out. And the most terrifying thing was that Elder Ji Xing couldn't figure out what on earth had happened. The coordinates of the military tent where they had organized this operation were absolutely confidential, and a barrier had been set up inside and outside the mountain forest. If someone had invaded last night, with so many of them, they should have sensed it long ago. However, not only did that almighty not cause any commotion, but he infiltrated them in an absolutely silent manner, killing them without them noticing. In the end, he was even able to erase the memories in their minds. At this thought, Elder Ji Xing couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. What a frightening method this was. Elder Ji Xing really couldn't remember, and the most terrifying thing was that Elder Mingren, who had taken 9 taels for psychological treatment, had also collapsed to the ground and was completely dead. Who could tell him what on earth had happened yesterday? Several hours before the Demon Hunters Association was wiped out, Elder Mingren, who had taken 9 taels for psychological treatment, returned to the military tent where the Demon Hunters Association was located. Because it had been discovered in time, 9 taels psychological treatment had gone very smoothly. The psychologist had sprayed 9 taels with an accelerant so that they would grow thick hair again and regain their original confidence. But as soon as he approached the military tent, Elder Mingren sensed that there was clearly something wrong with the aura inside. He frowned deeply. Had something happened? Elder Mingren immediately reacted, because he could clearly sense that the auras of the elders in the military tent were very weak, as if they were injured. But strangely, Elder Mingren didn't sense any enemy auras nearby. QB, we are going to prepare for battle, Elder Mingren said, and immediately a golden Ryatsu enveloped his body. This is a buff method that can double his combat effectiveness on the basis of the Kyubi chakra and Ryatsu's Ryatsu. However, this form can't be maintained for too long, because the Kyubi form itself consumes a lot of spiritual power in the body. At present, the way they use chakra is the same as that of Elder Poisonous Dragon. At the cost of consuming fat, chakra is integrated into spiritual power as a second source so that it can be used together. Elder Mingren believed that he was invincible in this mode, because in the Nine Tails form he had a more terrifying regenerative ability than President Bai. Although it could only last for 2 minutes, it was clearly enough to deal with an enemy. Besides, even if he really couldn't beat them, he could choose to run. Taking a deep breath, Elder Mingren chose to step into the military tent. When he lifted the tent flap, he would never forget the scene in front of him. All of the elders had fallen to the ground, including Elder Ji Xing, the chief commander of the operation this time. There were even a few elders who were completely dead and completely silent. He had to contact President Bai as soon as possible. Frowning, Elder Mingren canceled the Nine Tails form, then took out his phone and dialed President Bai's line. While he waited for the call, Elder Mingren carefully examined his surroundings again. There was fine wine and fried meatballs on the table. It was clear that Elder Ji Xing and the others had been celebrating not long ago, toasting to the smooth progress of tomorrow's plan. Elder Mingren remembered seeing Elder Ji Xing's WeChat moments before, and he had liked it and said that he was on his way back. Who would have thought that not long after that, they had all met with misfortune? Elder Mingren sighed deeply. He picked up a fried meatball on the table, put it in his mouth, and drank it down with the leftover wine on the table. This meatball and this glass of wine represented his mourning for Elder Ji Xing and the other elders. Chapter 687. That afternoon, Ajwa was feeling gloomy in his office. He had been receiving complaints all morning from enthusiastic citizens, and the main complaints were about number 60 High School. Many of them were very confused as to why number 60 High School wasn't on holiday today and was continuing with classes. Although the Demon Hunters Association's revenge plan had yet to take place, they were a bunch of cunning criminals. God knew what kind of perverted things they would do to the children. Over the last few days, there had been a lot of injuries caused by these psychopaths. For example, not long ago, there had been a scum who should have been struck by lightning for stabbing 2 elementary school kids on their way to school. This kind of person should be sliced into pieces and sent to hell. Their souls would never be able to reincarnate. Why did you do it to kids? If you're so capable, come at Ling Jinren. When Ajwa saw this news, he had been furious. So it wasn't that he couldn't understand these problems, but there were many times when he couldn't decide on his own when it came to suspending classes. There were times when a person in a high position was even more restrained, and he had to be cautious in everything he did. This time, number 60 High School hadn't suspended classes because of a variety of factors, although Ajwa didn't know what Headmaster Chen and the higher-ups had considered before making this decision. But as headmaster of number 60 High School, Headmaster Chen had never made a wrong decision, and this was indeed the case. The overseas returnee elites of the Demon Hunters Association had issued a notice of revenge in the morning, but it was now afternoon, and there was no sign of them. Brother Zhua, it seems like there's no movement now? The director's office and the deputy director's office were in the same room. Zhong Lang looked at the time, then poked his head out to ask Ajwa. Ajwa shrugged and spread his hands. He also didn't know what on earth was going on, and for some reason, Ajwa now had a very good feeling. It felt like a huge shadow was slowly enveloping him, which in the end turned into a wok that directly fell on his head. While Ajwa's imagination was running wild, his phone suddenly vibrated. He looked at the caller ID. It was Secretary Dekung calling. It can't be that incredible, right? Ajwa's lips twitched, and he picked up the phone. From the other end of the line came the old secretary's merciless praise. Little Zhuazi, you did a great job. Ajwa, what did he do this time? Secretary Dekung, we found the corpse of an overseas returnee elite from the Demon Hunters Association in a mountain forest, including Elder Ji Xing, who had organized this plan. Now, Elder Ji Xing was the only one left alive. The overseas returnee elite group of the Demon Hunters Association had been wiped out. Tell me honestly, did that teacher behind you make a move again? Old secretary, don't say, I know it's all arranged with a single calculation. Secretary Dakong, if that senior expert is willing to come out and meet me, I'll welcome him at any time. He's helped us a lot. Ajua. So now, Secretary Dakong, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and hold a press conference. This time, the overseas returnee elite group of the Demon Hunters Association has been wiped out. I want to see what the netizens have to say. Ajua. In the end, the Demon Hunters Association's grand plan to organize overseas returnee elites to attack number 60 high had ended with the deaths of almost all of them, except for 2 people who hadn't died. One was Elder Ji Xing, who was struggling bitterly, and the other was Elder Yaren, who was in the middle of a ghostly resurrection and had already been detained and arrested. These 2 were the first and second-ranked experts among the overseas returnee elites this time. Even so, they had already completely lost the ability to fight and wouldn't be able to participate in battle for the time being. It was still peaceful at noon at number 60 high. Uncle Chio's fruit pancake stall was ready to close up at noon. Just as Uncle Chio was about to push his cart away, a guest with a snow-white face holding a black umbrella suddenly appeared. This person's aura was very gloomy and cold, and when he approached, even the temperature of the stove on the pancake cart seemed to drop a few degrees. A small black umbrella covered half of the newcomer's face, and it was impossible to see his full appearance. Uncle Chio raised his eyebrows and then sighed silently in his heart. I don't have enough batter here, so I can only make one last pancake. Do you want crispy pancakes or youtiao? The ingredients for my pancake aren't very fresh at noon. If you still want it, this old man can give you a discount. The man under the black umbrella said quietly, youtiao. His words were concise and to the point, and he didn't say anything more. All right. Uncle Chio nodded and started to make the pancake. When he cracked the egg, Uncle Chio couldn't help sighing. It's really peaceful today. Hearing this, the man under the black umbrella was silent. People are like making pancakes. In the end, you have to make a careful choice whether you want to add sweet sauce or spicy sauce. There are some places you can provoke, and some places you can't. At this point, Uncle Chio had already finished making a pancake, and he very familiarly wrapped it in oil paper. Here, young man, your pancake. This customer with the black umbrella stared at the pancake and didn't move for a long time as he watched Uncle Chio push the cart away from the end of the road. Under the black umbrella, President Bai was utterly stupefied. He hadn't been standing still for a long time just now because he had stopped to think, but because he had been frozen in place by a powerful aura, which made it impossible for him to move even half a step. Could it be that this number 60 high really was a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons? Even an old uncle selling pancakes at the entrance was so terrifying? President Bai narrowed his eyes deeply as he started to weigh the pros and cons. Then he lowered his head and took a bite of the pancake in his hand. It was fried. On the other side, at the window of Grade 1, Class 3, Wang Ling secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and his unfocused eyes refocused. The Great Soul Transformation spell just now was a way to attach one's soul to another person's body. He had used Uncle Chio's body to give President Bai a warning. Although he wasn't sure if it would work, it could be said that this was Wang Ling's ultimatum. Mother Wang had taught him to be a polite child since he was young, and to be polite before resorting to force. Wang Ling felt that his warning just now could be said to be very polite. Chapter 688. President Bai was now very upset about the failure of his revenge plan. That was a whole 15 overseas returnee elites of the Demon Hunters Association. Now, not a single one of them was left. President Bai frowned. He was well aware that he could no longer make the decision on this matter because he was afraid of taking risks. Their Demon Hunters Association's main mission in Huaxiao Nation was in fact to fight for the Grade 13 spells in Beast King's remains. This wouldn't be easy, because President Bai was well aware that Huaxiao Nation had already noticed their movements and was bound to set up strict defenses in Beast King's remains. Given that the Demon Hunters Association's fighting strength had been greatly reduced, everything had become very difficult to predict. President Bai sighed. He had no choice but to send a text message to Night Chief's highest-ranking leader, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor. Lord Night Ghost Spirit Emperor, it's me, Baizha. I'm panicking right now. Abroad, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor received a message from President Bai asking for help. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor, truly useless trash. In the end, he still revealed a flaw. Lord Spirit Emperor, what countermeasures do you have? Asked a delicate and elegant young man. He had a folding fan in his hand and was dressed in a very old-fashioned way. This person was called Dylan. After President Edmark, the head of Night Chief's 6 generals, had been killed by that execution ball, Dylan, as his second-in-command, had taken over all of President Edmark's power networks. What do you think? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor looked at the young man and asked for his opinion. Compared with President Edmark's brash style, second President Dylan was a solid strategist. I suggest that we withdraw Baizha and let our people take over before the plan is carried out. That way, we can minimize our losses. Second President Dylan said, of course, even if President Bai comes back, he'll still have to face Your Excellency's punishment. With Your Excellency's permission, you can have him atone for his crimes there before coming back. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor nodded. Punishment was definitely necessary. Before the master plan was in motion, they had mobilized overseas elites to launch an attack without fully understanding the enemy's strength for a bit of personal grudge. In the end, they had fallen into the other party's trap and had been wiped out. If they weren't punished for this, it would have an extremely negative impact on the entire Night Chief. Because of this, they had to be punished as a warning to the rest. Given the seriousness of this incident, it wouldn't be too much to dismiss President Bai completely and have him die as an apology. Second President Dylan said, President Bai thought that he already had enough information on number 60 high, but now it looks like it wasn't even worth mentioning. Otherwise, the entire elite group of the Demon Hunters Association wouldn't have suffered such a fate. It's just a small foundation establishment high school, but so many experts have gathered here. I have a feeling that number 60 high might be a tough nut to crack. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor stood up from the throne, his expression already resolute. He decided that apart from sending someone to take over the next big plan, he would also have President Bai figure out the ins and outs of number 60 high. At the very least, he had to know what kind of person the great senior behind number 60 high school was. President Bai's ability to recover is extremely strong, but since he sent a message asking for help this time, Lord Spirit Emperor should also give him some help. Only by exerting enough pressure can we force out the senior behind him, President Dylan said. Yes, I've already passed on a technique to him. It's a technique that I personally developed, the spiritual loan technique. The spiritual loan technique? Yes, it's a technique that uses my venerable self as the main body and is controlled through a soul imprint. The borrower can borrow money to greatly increase their strength in a short period of time. It just so happens that this technique is still in the experimental stage. Since Baizha is willing to be the lab rat, there's no harm in letting him try it out. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor smiled. It's more cost-effective than a school loan, and there's no interest. You just need to use your lifespan to pay off the debt, and it's supported by installments. President Dylan, after school that day, Wang Ling vaguely sensed that something wasn't right. It was still calm inside and outside the school, but Wang Ling somehow felt that there was a hidden murderous intent. His intuition had always been very accurate and would never be wrong. Judging from the aura, this hostile aura was coming from President Bai, whom Wang Ling had warned before. Sure enough, in the end he couldn't hold it in anymore. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Pretending that nothing had happened, he put his hands in his pockets and left the school. Everyone in class was enthusiastically discussing summer camp activities. Since they were going to camp out in Beast King's remains, a lot of them were discussing what they should bring with them. In the end, Wang Ling didn't participate in the discussion. Wang Ling, what do you think we should bring with us? Super Chen turned his head to ask Wang Ling for his opinion, but realized that Wang Ling had already disappeared. Where was he? Super Chin rubbed his head. Wang Ling has already left. Dopey Guo pointed to the window. This guy follows us every day after school. Why is he leaving so fast today? As he said this, his expression suddenly changed dramatically as he looked out the window. Holy shit! Come and look. Frightened by this cry of alarm, everyone crowded around the window, and then saw a twisted black crack suddenly appear at the school gate. More than 10 tentacle-like objects directly separated from the crack and directly pulled Wang Ling into it. This scene was too sudden, and the students behind Wang Ling screamed and ran back. Almost everyone in Grade 1, Class 3 saw this scene, and they stared blankly as Wang Ling was swallowed up by this black crack in the space. A lot of people were so scared that they got goosebumps, and several girls in class directly cried out in alarm. Hurry and tell teacher. Little Peanut's face was deathly pale. Super Chen and Dopey Guo had already dashed out. About 5 minutes later, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's small villa received a call. It was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal who answered the phone. Because he had attended the parent-teacher conference in Wang Ling's place before, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's home phone number and cell phone were the contact details for the parent-teacher conference. At that time, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had attended the parent-teacher conference on behalf of Father and Mother Wang, and had given himself an alias, Wang Lei. Hello, are you Mr. Wang Ling's father, Wang Lei? Director Shi's voice came from the other end of the line. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was blank for a moment before he replied, Yes, I am. It's like this. Mr. Wang Lei, we are currently following up on this matter urgently, so can you please remain calm? Director Shi said. Alright, I'll stay calm. Please speak first. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was confused. Mr. Wang Lei, classmate Wang Ling was swallowed up by a black crack after school today. Our initial suspicion is that President Bai of the Demon Hunters Association is taking personal revenge, and he just happened to capture classmate Wang Ling. Director Shi's tone was very downcast. As teachers, we know that we can't shirk our responsibilities, but we still want to tell Mr. Wang Lei to prepare for the worst. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded seriously. That's it? Director Shi, yes. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's face was unperturbed. Alright, I got it. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up first. Let me know when my son's body is found. Chapter 689. Director Shi was stupefied. How could there be such a parent in the world? In disbelief, she looked at the phone number in the parent's address book to confirm that she hadn't called the wrong person. But when she had called him just now, it had felt like she had called a fake father. Previously, there had always been rumors in school that student Wang Ling came from a poor family and had a very cold personality. Now that Director Shi thought about it, she felt that this had something to do with his family education. Student Wang Ling's family circumstances were a little tragic. Feeling this way, Director of Teaching Director Shi's maternal instincts overflowed in that moment. She suddenly felt that she usually cared too little about student Wang Ling. Although this child was in the elite class and his academic performance definitely wouldn't be bad, she still had to pay attention to the psychological factor. Number 60 High's school style advocated two things: educating people and teaching. The importance of educating people comes before teaching. It wasn't right for teachers to blindly pursue grades, and the students' spiritual education was equally important. Headmaster Chen had emphasized this point many times at the staff meeting. Now, Director Shi's mind was full of regret as she made the call. She didn't know if student Wang Ling was still alive. But Director Shi and the other number 60 High teachers all had heavy hearts at that moment. Elsewhere, in the office of the General Administration of 100 schools, not long after the old secretary's commendation call, the bad news about Wang Ling came again. This time, it was Headmaster Chen himself who called Audiobook. Some students were surprised, and as headmaster, Headmaster Chen couldn't escape the blame. On the phone, Headmaster Chen's voice was very sorrowful, but Audiobook still didn't know which student had been taken away. Student Zhua. This was Headmaster Chen's habit of addressing this old graduate. "I already know, Headmaster." Ajwa's voice was also very gloomy. No one had expected that after the Demon Hunters Association's attack on Number 60 High's elite group of overseas returnees had died, that President Bai would actually launch another attack and abduct a student. "I'm ready to resign." Headmaster Chen sighed deeply. "If this student suffers misfortune because of this mistake, I will feel guilty for the rest of my life." "Headmaster," Ajwa was moved. "Calm down first, Headmaster. How about we think of a way together? Maybe that student is still alive. He's just a foundation establishment student. His body wouldn't be able to withstand being sucked directly into a space fissure like this." Headmaster Chen was very agitated. "Ajwa, can I ask Headmaster Chen which student it is exactly?" "You've seen that student before." Headmaster Chen replied, "Student Wang Ling from Grade 1, Class 3. Ajwa cried out in his heart, "Oh my God!" Master had been captured by demons. Half an hour before the incident, Wang Ling had already sensed something strange at the school gate. It was the earliest time for Grade 1 students to finish school. Usually, after school, students would stay in class to discuss their homework for a while before leaving. The reason why Wang Ling had left especially early was because he had sensed the murderous intent at the school gate. With his king's eye, he saw that there was a hidden space trap there. As long as a student walked out of the school gate, they would be sucked into the space. Sure enough, that obstinate person still came Wang Ling's side in his heart. There were always some people in this world who didn't understand human language, and Wang Ling felt that he had already done all he could. The moment he was sucked into the space, Wang Ling's face was expressionless. The tear in space didn't affect his body at all. Furthermore, the moment he was sucked into the space, he had already cast a spell to eliminate the space trap and directly block the crack so that he was the only one who was sucked in. After landing on the ground, Wang Ling carefully looked around. This was a completely independent space, and Wang Ling's initial judgment was that this was probably the internal space of a magic artifact. The entire space was a snow-white world that seemed to have no end. That President Bai had used a magic artifact and his own spell to separate this space. Wang Ling brushed off the crumbs on his school uniform, which had been left behind after he had fallen into the space crack. These were the flotsam that had been drawn in from other spaces when the space crack had formed. In the end, these flotsam had been broken down into very dirty particles and debris. Wang Ling was a little unhappy. This stuff was hard to wash, his school uniform was dirty, and he didn't know if enchanted detergent would be able to wash it clean. While Wang Ling was thinking this, the space in front of him distorted slightly, and a young man with a deathly pale face holding a black umbrella walked out of the space. This person was none other than President Bai. President Bai's aura was already different from what Wang Ling had sensed before. "We should put an end to our grudge today." President Bai let go of Wang Ling, and the small black umbrella floated behind him to reveal his entire face. At that moment, Wang Ling saw a very deep black mark between President Bai's eyebrows. This was proof that he had offered his body and soul for a trade. As the Heavenly Tao said, everything in the world was in balance, and equivalent exchange was an unchanging iron law. Given President Bai's original level, if he wanted to improve his strength, he could only rely on this shortcut to become stronger by selling his soul and sacrificing his lifespan. President Bai stared at Wang Ling, full of confidence in himself after becoming stronger. "I've already thoroughly investigated your strength. You're a true immortal, right? Wang Ling, Your Excellency has sabotaged our Demon Hunters Association's grand plan time and time again, and our association won't let Your Excellency have an easy time." President Bai's voice was low as he stared fixedly at Wang Ling and gnashed his teeth. "In order to deal with Your Excellency, I didn't hesitate to sacrifice 1,000 years of my lifespan in exchange for this opportunity to improve." Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. He had indeed heard Mr. Liu mention some information about President Bai before. This President Bai had an extremely powerful regenerative ability to begin with, and it was even more terrifying than Elder Yaren's. It was the kind of instantaneous self-healing ability that might have already healed while he was still being beaten. Now that President Bai had been strengthened overall, Wang Ling felt that his self-healing ability should be even stronger than before. Wang Ling remembered that he had slapped the master of Immortal Mansion before. 2 slaps to deal with Evil Sword God. So here was the problem: to deal with this President Bai, how many times could he slap him? Wang Ling didn't know yet, but he felt a little irritated. It was almost time for the final exams, and he had a lot of homework to do when he got home, which he hadn't finished yet. Chapter 690. After using the Spirit Power Loan spell to increase his strength in a short period of time, President Bai was clearly more confident in himself. In fact, choosing to trade with Night Ghost Spirit Emperor was something he had no choice but to do. Before the grand plan had been carried out, he had made a major strategic mistake in settling a personal grudge, which had led to the collective annihilation of the 15 overseas returnee elites of the Demon Hunters Association. Even when he returned, he wouldn't be able to escape Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's punishment for making such a mistake. Thus, President Bai had carefully considered his decision to attack Wang Ling this time. He had to redeem himself by doing a good deed, and before returning to Night Chief's headquarters, he had to get rid of this big problem in front of him as much as possible. Even if he couldn't get rid of him, severely wounding him would be good. In any case, there was no way he would lose in a fight. Even if his overall battle strength wasn't good, President Bai could still use attrition tactics. His powerful self-healing ability was his greatest source of confidence in this tactic. President Bai was a very cautious person and also a very cunning character, which could be seen from their previous encounters. He would never fight a battle he had no chance of winning. But despite all his calculations, President Bai had missed one point. In this world, not everyone could be viewed with common sense. In the isolated space of the magic treasure layer, in the blink of an eye, the small black umbrella hovering above President Bai's head started to exert force. A black light was emitted from the small umbrella and linked to President Bai's back. President Bai's entire body then directly flashed in front of Wang Ling. This process was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, this speed had already reached the limit of a peak late true immortal. This small black umbrella was a spatial magic treasure that was just one step away from upgrading to a world-defying magic weapon. However, the power it had erupted with so far was still a little beyond Wang Ling's expectations. When all was said and done, this was a powerful magic weapon made from 49 holy beast hides. Even if it was a first-class holy weapon, it was still much more powerful than a holy weapon of the same level. The ability to teleport when linked to its owner like this was very troublesome. If this President Bai collected all the hides and upgraded it to world-defying level, this small black umbrella might have the ability to distort time and space. He had his reasons for coming to this conclusion, because the independent space he was currently in had been created by this small black umbrella. The ability to open up an independent space was not something that an ordinary grade 1 sacred artifact could accomplish. Even among the 8 classes of divine artifacts, the most space-type grade 1 sacred artifacts could do was to jump through space and move across a large area. However, not only could this small black umbrella carry out large-scale movement, it could also independently open up a space to achieve spatial stripping. Its spatial attributes were diverse and complex, and its functions were very comprehensive. If he could level it up to the world-defying level, all the spatial attributes would be improved. The next step would be to distort space-time and even freeze space. This Wuji umbrella was a dangerous magic weapon, and Wang Ling had already made up his mind to retrieve it after this battle and then give it to Little Silver for safekeeping. President Bai didn't choose to hold back. The moment he appeared in front of Wang Ling in a flash, he struck out with his palm. Primordial World Stripping Palm. This was also a spell that combined the Wuji umbrella's spatial characteristics. Once the palm was hit, it would be directly torn to shreds and absorbed by the space. Wang Ling saw through this palm with his king's eye, and then dodged to the side. President Bai's palm directly distorted the air and tore a hole in this independent space. Then, the power of the Wuji umbrella swiftly sewed up this hole and the space swiftly recovered. So dangerous, Wang Ling sighed inwardly. Fortunately, he had reacted quickly. Otherwise, his school uniform would have been torn. Wang Ling had always disliked number 60 High's school uniform because it was very ugly, so he had never intended to enchant it. Now, he felt that it would be better to enchant it a little. At the very least, it wouldn't be torn, and it would also remove dirt and be washable. This is my original spell. Your Excellency, you don't look too good. President Bai sneered. He hadn't used his full strength in that palm just now, but he had already seen the youngster's expression turn very unsightly. This showed that his palm just now had a sufficient deterrent effect. There was hope for this battle. President Bai sneered in his heart. Wang Ling, there were times when you had to admit that there were indeed a few big illusions in life. For example, when it came to studying. This class isn't important, you'll understand the content when you go back, the exam shouldn't be so difficult. If I can't do it, neither can anyone else. I'll revise properly after I'm done with my homework. A straight-A student can't do this, so what if I can't? There's still a lot of time for revision. I'll give marks if I write down the formula. The teacher won't be able to tell if I write vague symbols. I should be able to pass this time. The above illusions were the same when it came to cultivation. This move worked. He was sweating just now. I must have scared him. I can't deal with this person. I couldn't beat him before, but I'm stronger now. This person looks very young and definitely isn't as strong as me. The battle has just begun. I can beat him. Other people might not be able to understand this feeling, but Wang Ling did. He didn't want to be a straight-A student, but he also didn't want to be thought of as a slacker. It was the same when it came to cultivation, so Wang Ling didn't know where on earth President Bai's confidence came from. Strong people would never say that they were very strong to other people. This was probably like the straight-A students who slowly walked out of the exam hall and said that they hadn't done well again. There would always be people who naively thought that these straight-A students were going to flunk their exams, but in the end, when they got their exam papers, they were still 50 points ahead of them. President Bai used the Wuji umbrella's teleportation ability as well as this primordial world separation palm to launch a new round of swift and violent attacks. In the end, the palm actually turned into countless shadows that flickered in front of Wang Ling, but Wang Ling evaded all of them. Blindly dodging is useless. In that moment, President Bai was full of confidence. His attack speed was almost 100% faster than before, and it was still rising. President Bai carefully observed Wang Ling's reaction under these increasingly fierce attacks, but unfortunately didn't notice any change on his face. Apart from the slightly deflated expression at the start of the attack, the other party had a poker face in all of President Bai's subsequent attacks. Could it be that he was scared silly by him? Was he pretending to be calm? President Bai pondered, but in the next moment, a palm directly collided with his, instantly blowing away all of President Bai's thoughts. It was just a casual palm that didn't seem to have used his full strength, but the power of this palm not only cancelled out the spatial power of the primordial world separation palm, it directly sent President Bai flying and causing him to vomit blood on the spot. In the next moment, Wang Ling's indifferent voice sounded in President Bai's mind. Do you have any other moves? If not, I'm going back to do my homework. Chapter 691. The corners of President Bai's mouth twitched as if he was doubting life. It was clear that this youngster hadn't used his full strength in that palm strike just now. But while President Bai had spat out blood, he had almost instantly recovered from his injury and hadn't even suffered any internal injuries. President Bai had an extremely strong recovery physique to begin with, so he wasn't afraid of being injured at all. But the scene in front of him left him in disbelief. His primordial world stripping palm just now was one of the top 3 spells he had mastered. He didn't believe that this spatial spell, which had the power to destroy space, hadn't caused the youngster the slightest bit of damage. How could his palm technique have failed? No, this person was definitely trying to show off. At that moment, President Bai's thoughts were 1,001 things, and he didn't even have time to think about what the youngster's words meant. He was already such a powerful almighty. Did he still need to do homework? President Bai instantly felt his mind go haywire. He didn't believe that his move just now hadn't harmed the other party at all. Purely in terms of damage, his palm strike wasn't just fatal, it was also extremely destructive. No matter how strong the other party's recovery ability was, the damage caused by a spatial spell couldn't be completely healed in a short period of time. This was an even more terrifying kind of damage than the serious injury state. Wang Ling's casual palm strike just now hadn't been fatal, but the frightening thing was that Wang Ling had directly offset the damage from his spatial palm technique. President Bai had successfully borrowed money from Night Ghost Spirit Emperor in exchange for his lifespan to raise his strength to the late true immortal level for a short period of time. Although he hadn't used 100% of his strength in that palm strike just now, it wasn't to the extent that it hadn't hurt him at all. The other party was definitely trying to show off. That was right. He had to be trying to show off. He couldn't admit or believe that his attack had actually been ineffective. How could there be someone stronger than a true immortal in this world? Even Immortal Zhenyuan, who was said to have already attained venerated immortal level, was just a legend. A lot of people had never even met him. President Bai's breathing had unconsciously become rapid. This wasn't because he was tired, but purely because he was nervous. But even in this situation, President Bai still didn't have any intention of admitting defeat. Seeing this, Wang Ling sighed silently. Sometimes, it was indeed very difficult to admit that there was a gap between people. This required a person to have an understanding of their true strength. In other words, whether or not they had a clear idea, it was very clear that President Bai hadn't. Sometimes, people needed to be clear about who they were. Wang Ling looked at President Bai with a profound gaze. He had to admit that compared with his previous opponents, President Bai was indeed a little special. He had actually been able to instantly recover from Wang Ling's not-so-serious palm strike. Even the likes of Evil Sword God and the Old Devil couldn't compare to this kind of self-healing ability. In other words, even if Wang Ling was a little more ruthless, President Bai wouldn't die so easily. He had actually been pretty depressed in his previous fights, because he always felt like his hands and feet were tied when he fought. The law had always been his first choice. In an era of orderly cultivation, if everything was solved by killing, then it could only prove that this era was a failure. Someone had created the rules, so someone had to follow them. To put it bluntly, Wang Ling felt that he was still young, and it definitely wasn't a good thing to have too much blood on his hands. Thinking this, Wang Ling sighed and started to walk toward President Bai step by step. The moment he took the first step, President Bai felt an endless pressure directly weigh down on his shoulders, like empty tide crashing down on him. The aura of the youngster in front of him had completely changed. It was almost like it was doubling. It was just the first step, but President Bai was directly shaken into spitting out a mouthful of blood. How can this be? Under President Bai's boundless astonishment, Wang Ling had already taken the second step. At the same time, the entire internal space of the magic treasure started to fluctuate tremendously. This was an independent world which President Bai had used the power of the Wuji umbrella to open up, and it was completely separated from the outside world. The entire space was extremely stable. But now, the youngster's second step directly affected the entire space wall. Like dominoes, the endless cracks created a chain effect as the space split open in all directions. A powerful space storm swept up in the fissures, which tore the space to and fro, directly destroying space with just one step. How was this possible? President Bai felt that the situation was completely out of control under the enormous tearing force of the space. In his current state, he was like a clay bodhisattva crossing a river, unable to protect himself. The tearing force of the space was too terrifying, and more cracks appeared around him, tearing at his body. President Bai could only yell at Wang Ling, "Are you crazy? You won't be able to protect yourself if you do this." He couldn't figure out why the youngster would directly use this method of destroying space. In President Bai's view, this was undoubtedly a lose-lose situation. This was an independent space which he had set up with the Wuji umbrella. If the space directly detonated under this kind of destruction, both of them would be finished. Because at that time, even if he became a pile of minced meat drifting in the space, even if he didn't die, he wouldn't be able to return to his original world. You actually want to use this kind of suicidal method to drag me down with you? President Bai broke out in a cold sweat at Wang Ling's viciousness, and his face couldn't help turning deathly pale. But this wasn't the only thing that astonished him. At that moment, Wang Ling took the third step. At that moment, in this world which had been on the verge of collapse and which had become filled with countless space fissures, the fissures which had appeared around the youngster were actually all repaired. The youngster slowly raised his hand, and the space fissures instantly transformed into thousands of vipers which bit at President Bai. At that moment, President Bai finally realized. This youngster didn't want to perish together with him. Instead, after shattering the space, the youngster wanted to manipulate the space fissures to tear him apart. He was going to die. President Bai felt despair. The moment the thousands of space fissures bit at him like vipers, President Bai reflexively stretched out his hand to block them. But just as he raised his hand, everything in front of him unexpectedly became calm once more. President Bai was stupefied by this method. He could shatter it at will and restore it at will. Was this the youngster's true strength? Do you think it's over just like this? While President Bai was in a daze, Wang Ling spoke telepathically. Then, the youngster unzipped his school uniform jacket and put it away, then gazed at President Bai. President Bai didn't know the meaning of this action, but after the youngster took off his jacket, he actually reached into the sleeves of his short-sleeved shirt, as if he was tearing something apart. Heavenly Eye! President Bai opened his eyes wide enough to see through the youngster's movements. In the end, he actually noticed a talisman seal stuck to the youngster's sleeve. Chapter 692. The moment the talisman seal was lifted, the aura which had been suppressed all this time surged like a geyser. The youngster's aura and temperament completely changed in that moment, and there was an indescribable profundity to it. His small body was only the size of a star in this magic treasure space, but it left an indelible impression on anyone. Wang Ling's short-sleeved school uniform fluttered in the wind, and the three-petaled golden flower appeared in the king's eye again. It was endlessly deep, as if it could pierce through the heavens with one glance, and it struck President Bai squarely in the chest with overwhelming pressure. Wang Ling hadn't made a move, hadn't even made a single move, but President Bai was already sent flying by this aura and vomited blood. The talisman seal had been suppressing Wang Ling's original strength all along. As someone who had been born with the 3,000 great Tao, when the talisman seal was completely stuck to him, the number of heavenly Tao on Wang Ling's body was in fact limited to 100. Even so, this was already fierce enough. Now that the talisman seal had been lifted, even if it was only half opened, the huge gap between 100 heavenly Tao and 1,500 heavenly Tao left President Bai with a bitter taste in his mouth. All along, President Bai had judged the youngster in front of him by his realm, but now he truly understood, this youngster couldn't be measured by realm at all. Rumor had it that evil sword god comprehending one heavenly Tao was already unbelievably heaven-defying, but Wang Ling already had 100 heavenly Tao on him when he was sealed. Now that half of it had been unlocked, the pressure of a total of 1,500 heavenly Tao wasn't just enough to shake the heavens. This was a power that could overturn the entire sky. This youngster was far from someone whom President Bai could shake. President Bai grit his teeth. His first reaction was to retreat. If he braced himself in this situation, that would truly be courting death. Wuji Umbrella. He roared as he called out the Wuji Umbrella's name. Behind him, the small black umbrella hovering in the air immediately started to spin at his call and emitted a black light. Wang Ling, however, had already seen through President Bai's intentions. President Bai was scared. He wanted to use the Wuji umbrella's power to cut open this space and then escape. But how could it be that easy? Wang Ling's gaze turned to the small black umbrella, and several dozen heavenly Tao in his king's eye imperceptibly crushed it, forming a massive restraining force. President Bai could only watch helplessly as the Wuji umbrella stopped spinning halfway. Wuji umbrella. President Bai called out again. However, the Wuji umbrella did not have any reaction. Wuji umbrella. He shouted for the third time. In the end, it was the extremely irritated voice of the Wuji umbrella's artifact spirit that responded to President Bai. Noisy, noisy my ass. Can't you see that I can't move? President Bai. To be honest, this was one of the few times the spirit of the Wuji umbrella had responded to him. Furthermore, it was with such a nasty attitude. Is there any way to get me out of here? President Bai asked the Wuji umbrella for help. After a moment of silence, the Wuji umbrella directly begged Wang Ling for mercy. Big shot, please let me go. I only signed a contract with him. I can break the contract. It doesn't matter. Boss, don't kill me. This person has too many sins on his back. I can be a stain witness for him. But taint the artifact spirit. As a weapon spirit, the limitless umbrella was clearly frightened by the binding power of the heavenly Daos. It felt as if there were a dozen sharp blades placed on its neck. Therefore, after comprehensive consideration, the Wuji umbrella artifact spirit felt that begging for mercy was the most appropriate way. Wang Ling. After the Wuji umbrella finished begging for mercy, it immediately tried to persuade President Bai. Cut the crap, hurry up and kneel down to admit you were wrong. President Bai had never expected the Wuji umbrella to directly choose to betray him. In fact, even if the Wuji umbrella didn't have to personally say so, Wang Ling had already planned to take it back. He stretched out his hand, and the Wuji umbrella directly fell into it. As Wang Ling caressed the umbrella, he pulled out a string of golden runes. President Bai was stunned, because this string of runes was none other than the artifact spirit contract he had signed with the Wuji umbrella. Now, this youngster had actually directly pulled out this contract. After dragging out the entire contract, Wang Ling didn't even bother to look at it and directly crushed it in his palm, reducing it to dust. Thus, there was no need for the Wuji umbrella to break the contract from the very beginning, and Wang Ling could directly modify it. Now, this Wuji umbrella had already become an ownerless object. I'll fight you to the death. President Bai gnashed his teeth furiously. He never thought that this youngster would actually humiliate him in this way and steal his magic treasure in front of him. This was no different from stealing his wife right in front of him, and was a huge humiliation. Spirit channeling. 9 Rashomon. President Bai yelled as he quickly made a hand seal and slapped the ground. The 9 ancient giant stone gates were immediately summoned by the spirit link. These 9 stone gates were simple and unadorned, like the doorways of an ancient temple. Their frames were richly ornamented with complex patterns and carved with some kind of rare and unusual beast. With a howl, the head of an evil ghost in the center of the gates abruptly opened its mouth, and a distant and desolate aura washed over the area, which turned into a huge protective shield in front of them. Apart from the Wuji umbrella, this was the last magic treasure President Bai had in his possession. The 9 gates were extremely oppressive, and this 9 Rashomon had an extremely strong suppressive force. The aura of this youngster in front of him was really too terrifying, so President Bai's first thought was to suppress him. As long as he could suppress the other party, maybe he would still be able to fight. But as it turned out, President Bai had indeed been thinking too much. Now that Wang Ling had already removed half of the talisman seal, no matter how many tricks President Bai had up his sleeve, in the face of the power of 1,500 heavenly Dao, he was just trash among trash. Wang Ling stared at the 9 huge ancient gates inside. This sigh abruptly released a wave of air. This was the king's lament. In a flash, the 9 giant gates and a top-notch first-class holy artifact were directly reduced to dust by this sigh. With a gust of wind, they turned into dust that drifted between heaven and earth. This flashy attack was of no use. In the face of 1,500 heavenly Dao, a mere first-class holy artifact couldn't withstand this kind of pressure at all, and was destroyed on the spot. The 9 gates, along with the artifact spirits inside, were completely annihilated. What kind of method was this? President Bai trembled as he knelt on the ground, his expression absent-minded. Chapter 693. All of this was just an experimental performance for Wang Ling. He wanted this President Bai to recognize the gap in their strength. At that moment, President Bai's eyes were pale as he was completely frightened by the enormous power contained in the youngster. Ever since he had cultivated this special immortal constitution, he had never feared death. But the youngster in front of him had such extraordinary means that he had no choice but to believe that this youngster had hundreds and thousands of ways to kill him. He, Bai Zhi, who had cultivated for thousands of years, was actually going to be defeated here in the end? President Bai lowered his eyes in fear. The number of heavenly Tao contained in Wang Ling's body shook him to his core, and at the same time, he secretly gritted his teeth as a hint of powerless jealousy quietly welled up in his heart. This was the first time Wang Ling had removed the talisman seal. Although it was only half, the power that had erupted was already strong enough. The reason why this was an experimental performance was because Wang Ling wanted to see if he could precisely control the heavenly Tao at his current level of growth if he released half of his strength. And when he had smashed the 9 doors earlier, Wang Ling had already gotten his answer. Given the current situation, removing the talisman seal was actually a very dangerous act. He had just sighed casually and wanted to cast a spell, but in the end, before he could do so, the 9 doors had been directly smashed by his own sigh. President Bai was very shocked, and so was Wang Ling. Heavenly Tao was a good thing, and there were too many people who pursued it but couldn't get it. But sometimes, having too many heavenly Tao was a real pain in the ass. If it wasn't for the fact that this was a completely isolated space that wouldn't affect the outside world even if it was destroyed, there was no way Wang Ling would have been able to remove the talisman seal so easily. But the damage caused by his inadvertent sigh just now had been a huge blow to President Bai. After a moment of silence, Wang Ling stuck the talisman's seal back on. President Bai should now be well aware of the gap in strength between the two of them. Forget 3,000 heavenly Tao, even a blow from 1,500 heavenly Tao would be unbearable for anyone. If the 3,000 heavenly Taos were unleashed at the same time, it was likely that all the cultivators in the world would be completely reduced to miscellaneous cultivators. That King's Lament just now hadn't just destroyed the 9 Stacks Gate in an instant. President Bai had also been severely injured. Although there weren't any visible wounds on the surface, that sigh had already caused severe internal injuries. His internal organs had probably been shattered in an instant, but President Bai had still survived. Compared with his previous opponents, this President Bai was indeed like a cockroach. But while they were difficult to deal with, it wasn't as if he didn't have the means to deal with them. Wang Ling closed the talisman seal. He felt a little uneasy after releasing half of his strength earlier, so he stuck it back on. It was just an ordinary sigh, and it was already so powerful. If it was a spell, what would happen? But this action deeply hurt President Bai, and he felt that he was being looked down upon. President Bai crawled up from the ground on trembling legs and hurriedly popped a spirit-recovering pill into his mouth. The internal injuries caused by the King's Lament had already mostly recovered. But Wang Ling could see that this kind of recovery wasn't limitless, and required a lot of spirit energy. Currently, President Bai's spirit energy was almost at its limit, and he had no choice but to take pills to maintain his strength. Damn it! You actually dare look down on me? Seeing Wang Ling stick the talisman seal back on, President Bai felt like he had suffered an unprecedented psychological blow. This was a blatant disdain. President Bai was so angry that his liver trembled. Even if you're a tiger, I'm going to pull out one of your teeth today. As he spoke, President Bai narrowed his eyes, and in an instant, countless runes of light condensed on his body. In that instant, President Bai's body abruptly swelled up countless times in the air, and his body was covered in runes that were as black as ink. These dark runes hid a godly might that couldn't be profaned, and who knew how much power they contained. Wang Ling could immediately tell that President Bai had once again sold his body for a deal. But this time, it was clear that President Bai wasn't selling his lifespan, but his soul. Exchanging one's lifespan for a replacement was completely different from exchanging one's soul. Wang Ling was astonished and felt that things had become troublesome. He never thought that his unintentional action would actually provoke President Bai to directly resort to selling his soul in exchange for greater power to fight Wang Ling. It wouldn't be to the extent of mutual destruction, but there was a real possibility that his clothes would be torn. The Wang family's family law stipulated that apart from when the school uniform was damaged due to unavoidable circumstances, if Wang Ling had to buy a new school uniform after it was damaged, the money would be deducted from his own pocket money. In that instant, Wang Ling broke out in a cold sweat. Number 60 high school uniform was ugly, but it wasn't cheap. It could sell several boxes of crispy noodle snacks. On the other side, President Bai was pleasantly surprised when he saw Wang Ling's expression change dramatically. Although he didn't know what had caused this initially calm youngster to suddenly look a little flustered, President Bai's first reaction was that the power he had exchanged his soul for was already enough to make this youngster feel apprehensive. Otherwise, there was no way this youngster would show such an expression. "You're scared, aren't you?" In his giant form, President Bai sneered cruelly. He was practically roaring as he shouted, his voice a little wild and unruly as it reverberated in the world. Wang Ling. Seeing that the youngster didn't respond, President Bai's smile became even more brilliant. "Sure enough. You're scared. You finally know fear." Wang Ling. At that moment, President Bai's body was hundreds of times larger than before as he stared at Wang Ling in a condescending manner. "I used my soul in exchange for the power of heavenly Tao multiplication. No matter what, I'll make you taste some pain with this strike." As soon as he said this, President Bai's giant form actually transformed once again, and he actually turned into a giant pitch-black spear. The strong wind that rose in all directions really created a lot of space fissures, stirring up a massive storm that messed up Wang Ling's bangs. Wang Ling stared blankly for a long time as he stared blankly, unable to see what on earth was so powerful about him. Go to hell. President Bai, who had transformed into a giant spear, was already charging at Wang Ling at an extremely fast speed with absolutely destructive power. Sword come. Wang Ling curled his lip and stretched out his hand. Chapter 694. This black spear was called the Spear of Destiny. President Bai had paid the price of his soul and used his body as a medium to transform into this spear, and this wasn't just President Bai's most powerful strike, it was also his last. Because he had sold his soul, after this spear was over, President Bai's soul would be directly absorbed by Night Ghost Spirit Emperor and he would become his puppet. Borrowing from a loan shark was fraught with danger to begin with. But when President Bai charged forward, Wang Ling threw Jinka at him at the same time. Compared with the Spear of Destiny's enormous body, the brown spirit light which Jinka had turned into was like a tiny spark. It looked so insignificant, but its battle strength was astonishing. When the brown spirit light approached the Spear of Destiny, which President Bai had transformed into, he couldn't help shuddering at the feeling of being within arm's reach. He was going to die. This was President Bai's first instinct. He sensed unprecedented killing intent from this brown spirit light. After all, this was already his final trump card. He had been smug about teaching the youngster a lesson, but in the end he was going to end up in a sorry state. He bid farewell to the world in the most tragic way possible. Perhaps he wouldn't die, but his soul would be sold to Night Ghost Spirit Emperor forever and he would become his sole slave. This was an outcome even more tragic than death. It was over. Wang Ling stared at President Bai without saying a word or even speaking telepathically. But the moment he collided with Jinka, President Bai indeed read the meaning in the youngster's dead fish eyes. This battle was already over. In those final few seconds when Jinka collided with him, President Bai saw the initially weak brown spirit light suddenly expand to form a massive sword of light which came crashing down at him. When the sword drew closer, President Bai heard countless voices in his ears. These voices were solemn and sacred, and carried with them an enormous pressure that could destroy the world, making his heart tremble. In the final moment of collision, President Bai's eyes abruptly widened and his face was full of despair. World-annihilating sword, the most profound sword technique of Heavenly Tao, Sword Tao. In the final moment before his death, President Bai's mind seemed to clear up all of a sudden. At the same time, he actually felt a sense of peace that he had never felt before. In front of the world-annihilating sword, he hadn't felt the slightest bit of fear, because he knew that he wouldn't feel any pain when this sword came down. The moment they collided, the entire space within the magic treasure shattered, and an intense rumbling sound erupted. Wang Ling activated the golden light shield to its fullest extent, for fear that his school uniform would be ruined elsewhere, in Night Chief's secret base in Mishio Nation. At the same time, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor learned of President Bai's death. In the end, he still lost? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor stared at the soul crystal ball in his hand and watched as President Bai's soul mark gradually faded. The second president, Dylan, stood aside. Lord Spiritual Venerable, may I ask how strong they are? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor frowned, then shook his head after a while and said indifferently, immeasurable. It is. Baizhi isn't completely dead. He sold his soul to me, but now that I've taken it back, it's just a remnant soul. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor muttered to himself. He opened his right hand, and a ball of blue soul light instantly appeared in his palm. This was the soul which President Bai had sold to him, but it was now completely broken. A broken soul, is it still useful? Whether it's a remnant soul or not, as long as there's a wisp of it left, it's still useful to me. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor smiled slightly, then opened his purple lips and directly absorbed this remnant soul of President Bai's. The moment he finished absorbing the remnant soul, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor also absorbed President Bai's abilities from when he was alive. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor opened his right shoulder, where Wang Ling's medicine ball had pierced through previously. Back then, the medicine ball had flown around the earth and directly blown his arm off. Even though it had been repaired, there was still a scar where it connected. But after absorbing President Bai's remnant soul, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor also obtained President Bai's extremely strong regenerative abilities, and the wound actually instantly became smooth and flat as it healed. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's strength was to turn someone else's abilities into his own. Looking at this scene, Second Chief Dylan trembled with fear. After absorbing President Bai's remnant soul, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor seemed a little unsatisfied, and he leaned back in his chair for a long time before he asked languidly, by the way, how's the contact going? President Dylan replied, I've already taken over the Demon Hunters Association's work, and I'll set out for Huaxio Nation starting today. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor nodded. Also, I'll leave the matter of collecting the souls of the Demon Hunters Association's elite group to you. Especially Ji Xing's and Yaren's souls. It would be best if you could bring them back in one piece. Then what about the youngster who fought President Bai? Asked Dylan. That youngster? If we can eat that youngster's soul, that would truly be wonderful. From President Bai's remnant soul, he could sense how powerful that youngster was, and the more powerful a person was, the more delicious their soul would be. At this thought, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor couldn't help drooling. Dylan. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor wiped at his drool. Sorry, I forgot myself. Dylan, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor, we must be careful when dealing with that youngster. If we don't take care of him, he'll definitely become a huge problem for our Night Chief in the future. Then what is Lord Spirit Emperor's opinion? No matter how powerful a person is, they will still have weaknesses. The root cause of Baizhi's defeat this time was that he didn't poke the other party where it hurts. Number 60 high is a little strange to begin with. If we act rashly without fully understanding the other party's background, we definitely won't end well. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor smiled. My venerable self has some information I bought from Immortal Castle. According to the information, this youngster seems to have an older brother, and the two brothers seem to be on good terms. The point is that this older brother isn't a cultivator. My venerable self thinks that this can be a breakthrough for us. After you arrive in Huaxio Nation, apart from keeping a close eye on the master plan, you can also assign someone to investigate this person. Yes, Lord Spirit Emperor. That youngster's soul is a little delicious. If we can threaten him this time and make him willingly trade his soul with us, that would be great. Lord Spirit Emperor, your saliva. Sorry, my venerable self forgot myself again. Chapter 695. When Wang Ling opened his eyes again, It was already evening, and several spotlights shone on his head. He reappeared at number 60 High School's gate. The place where the space fisher had appeared earlier had already been sealed off by the police with layers of seals and barriers. Several police officers who were inspecting the barrier were startled when they saw this scene. No one had expected this student who had been swallowed up by the space fisher would actually be sent back untouched. It wasn't just the police, even Wang Ling himself was a little bewildered. Wang Ling hadn't expected that he would be spat out in the same place as he had been swallowed, which led to the surrounding police officers staring at him as if they were looking at a rare animal. What's going on? Didn't they say that the student had already been swallowed? The police officers scratched their heads. They had worked overtime for nothing tonight. After being spat out of the space, what came next was naturally the police's statement and all kinds of questions. The whole matter actually wasn't too troublesome, since President Bai was already dead and had offered up his soul. Apart from Wang Ling, there were no other witnesses, so Wang Ling could say whatever he wanted. It was just that this time, Wang Ling didn't push everything onto Audiobook. At this stage, it was clear that there was an even more powerful expert pulling the strings behind this President Bai, and this expert was the head of the Foreign Force Night Chief. At this stage, Wang Ling didn't really want his disciple to take the blame for what had happened abroad, otherwise it would really be a little too much. It was already midnight when Wang Ling returned home that night. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal personally drove him back to the Wang family's small villa. Standing at the entrance to the villa, it was completely silent. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's car stopped in front of the villa for a while. He thought that the seniors in the villa would come out to pick him up, but in the end, no one came out for a long time, and his expression was a little awkward. Brother Ling, it seems that the seniors are already resting. The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Grenade-throwing, this fake father, cared more about him than his own parents. Brother Ling, rest early. Brother Zhua and I will be in charge of handling the police station from now on. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal often came into contact with the police station because they courted death all year round, so he was quite familiar with handling all kinds of cases. President Bai's body had been destroyed along with the space, and Wang Ling deduced that his soul had probably been absorbed by Night Ghost Spirit Emperor in the form of a remnant soul. Of course, Wang Ling himself was well aware of this, but he hadn't completely explained it to the police. Because if he said everything, he wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. His current identity was still that of a student, and the most important thing he had to face was the upcoming final exam. If he were to confess everything to the police, the fact that he had great power would definitely be exposed. What's more, after today's incident, he had already received a lot of attention. Wang Ling sighed. His initial goal had just been to be invisible, but now that things had developed to this point, it was a little difficult for him to keep a low profile. Wang Ling felt that when he had directly obtained an SSR in the entrance test at the start of the semester, it had caused a lot of talk. It hadn't been easy for things to calm down recently, but in the end, the focus of attention had shifted back to him. When he got out of the car, Wang Ling gave the Wuji umbrella which he had taken from President Bai to Grenade-throwing for Little Silver to handle. Wuji umbrella, Big Brother, Thunder Monkey. Big Brother, please take care of me in the future. We'll be one big family from now on. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Grenade-throwing knew about the Wuji umbrella being taken back. Because Grenade-throwing would be responsible for handling a lot of the follow-up matters, he had directly passed on the memories of his and President Bai's fight in the space to Grenade-throwing, so Grenade-throwing was the clearest about the entire sequence of events. The moment he took the black umbrella, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help sighing again. As expected, Brother Ling is still the best. He was actually able to directly erase a Magic Treasures contract. This method was too monstrous. In some sense, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal even felt that Wang Ling was like a game administrator. He had directly used his identity as an administrator to unbind a prop. But holding the Wuji umbrella in his hand, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression was a little worried. It was very obvious from the way the Wuji umbrella had spoken just now that it wasn't a proper umbrella. The most important thing was that after its contract had been erased, This Wuji umbrella was currently ownerless. If something unexpected happened on the way back, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that it would be very difficult for him to suppress it with his own strength. As a magic treasure with its own uniqueness, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help overthinking things. The reason why this Wuji umbrella was so well behaved now was because Wang Ling was here. Who knew if it would still behave when Wang Ling wasn't around? Just as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was thinking this, he saw Wang Ling suddenly grab his hand. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Ling, isn't this a little too fast? I'm not ready yet, Wang Ling. What was this guy thinking now? At that moment, Wang Ling stared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and said something telepathically, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's face instantly lit up with realization. It was as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had predicted. On the way back with the Wuji umbrella which had been lying in the passenger seat suddenly moved slightly, and then it directly floated up into the air, projecting a shadow. This shadow was the human form of the Wuji umbrella's weapon spirit. It was a purple-haired girl with long pointy ears and a face covered in bandages. Her name was Wuji. Was that big shot just now your friend? The Wuji umbrella's weapon spirit asked. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised his eyebrows. What about it? His intuition was telling him that this Wuji umbrella was most likely up to some tricks. Sure enough, as long as Brother Ling wasn't by its side, this umbrella would indeed cause trouble. Fortunately, everything was within grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expectations. When Wang Ling had grabbed his hand just now, he had in fact stored a spell in his soul suppression ring. Although the soul suppression ring was a resurrection magic artifact, it also had a spatial storage function and could also be used to store spells. It seems you're only at the soul formation stage? The girl asked in a deep voice again. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal laughed. What do you mean? Are you looking down on soul formation cultivators? The young girl smiled sinisterly. No, I was just thinking if you'd better have designs on me and use me as a hostage to threaten Brother Ling. You could tell? The girl was startled. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal gripped the steering wheel with a calm expression on his face. Do you know why Brother Ling touched my hand just now? The girl shook her head. He stored 10 flames of purification in my ring, and told me that if you didn't behave, he would directly burn you. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stared at her with a smile. If you don't believe me, let's try it? The girl, you actually calculated this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, do you still want to make a move? The girl smiled slightly and then patted grenade-throwing Senior Immortal on the shoulder. Haha. I was just joking just now. Aren't we one big family? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed. Chapter 696. The Demon Hunters Association incident finally ended with President by blowing himself up, but that was just an explanation to the general public. Anyone who had been personally involved in the incident knew that the Demon Hunters Association was just the beginning, and it wouldn't be over until the head of the foreign force was caught. The next day was July 26th on Wednesday in the 14th week of the semester. News of President by blowing himself up spread all over the internet. Under pressure from Secretary Dekong of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools, all the major media outlets hid Wang Ling's information and didn't let the students know. It was the Alliance of 10,000 Schools' responsibility to protect students' privacy. Of course, Ajwa had also requested this, otherwise it wouldn't have been so convenient. Early in the morning in elegant little pavilion, General Yi and his assistant, Tang Chen, were sipping tea as they read the morning's morning newspaper. The crisis was resolved just like that? Is that student really all right? Old Tang was a little puzzled. He felt that this matter was very complicated, and there seemed to be too many doubtful points that hadn't been clearly explained. Based on what I know so far, there are indeed a lot of things that haven't been reported. I asked Di Shaokong in private. This guy wouldn't tell me even half a word. General Yi's brow furrowed into a knot. Number 60 High had been in trouble time and time again, but in the end, they had all been averted. Furthermore, Adjoa of the General Administration of 100 schools, who had recently been in the limelight, had been involved in almost every incident. This person was a number 60 high graduate who had become famous after accidentally killing a demon king a few years ago. Recently, he had been rising up the ranks like a rocket and had long attracted General Yi's attention. General Yi put down the newspaper and stared at old Tang. It seems that what you're thinking is pretty much the same as what I'm deducing. Old Tang nodded. I think that there's definitely someone pulling the strings behind the scenes, and that this person is very powerful. Dakong has never mentioned this matter. Sure enough, what I'm most worried about is about to happen. General Yi sighed. What he was afraid of was this. In recent years, the fight against corruption had become more and more prevalent, and almost no one dared to commit crimes. But if any of the 10 generals were corrupted, it would be a heavy blow to Huaxiao Nation. Old Tang, General Yi suspects. General Yi hurriedly stopped him. I do, but we don't have any evidence at the moment, so we can't speak carelessly. In fact, General Yi had already had his suspicions a long time ago, and now it seemed that the whole thing was finally starting to take shape. He was well aware that asking Sun Dakong directly wouldn't yield any results, so in the end, if he wanted to investigate, he would have to start with numbers 60 high and Adjoa. This was indeed what General Yi had been thinking before the Demon Hunters Association incident came to an end. But now, General Yi had a new plan. He decided to visit the home of the student involved in the incident. He didn't know if it was his imagination, but General Yi felt that there was something fishy about this. Furthermore, General Yi had a strong feeling that the almighty behind Director Zhou he would definitely get the answer on this trip. It seems that General Yi has made up his mind. Seeing General Yi's righteous expression, old Tang chuckled. I hope that the outcome of this matter won't be too bad. Dakong and I have worked together for thousands of years. Logically speaking, he shouldn't do anything foolish. But if there's something wrong with Dakong, this old man will use all his strength to take him down. Speaking up to this point, General Yi's eyes flickered. Whether it's official or private, this is the best way to deal with it. General, do you need me to make preparations? General Yi waved his hand. Not for the time being. The summer camp in Beast King's remains in Songhai City is about to start, and this old man has to make a trip there anyway. I also have to visit that stupid junior brother of mine on the way. But before that, this old man intends to clarify some things first. On the other side, number 60 high was particularly noisy this morning. Grade 1, Class 3's focus this morning was naturally Wang Ling, who had survived a disaster. Wang Ling came especially early this morning. When he arrived at school, only a few of his classmates were busy cleaning up. Little Peanut went out with a few bouquets of flowers in his hands and was about to dispose of them. The other students of number 60 high school had bought these flowers from the flower shop after hearing about the news of Wang Ling's accident after school yesterday. The labels on the flowers even read, "In deep mourning for classmate Wang Ling." Wang Ling, holding the flowers, Little Peanut bumped into Wang Ling as soon as he left the classroom and immediately cried out in alarm, "Oh my God! Classmate Wang Ling is alive!" Wang Ling. Although there had already been news yesterday that Wang Ling was still alive and well, Little Peanut still felt a little frightened when he saw him again. The class cadres who had come to clean the classroom early this morning had also officially received Teacher Pan's notice, and the fragrance of flowers still filled the air in the classroom. When Wang Ling walked into the classroom, he saw that there were actually wreaths piled on his seat. Classmate Wang Ling, wait, let me confirm it first. Little Peanut stretched out his hand and poked Wang Ling's face. Although he had the same poker face and dead fish eyes as always, at least there was warmth on his face. It seemed that this was indeed classmate Wang Ling. Classmate Wang Ling, it's great that you're still alive. Everyone was so worried. Quite a few girls cried yesterday. Little Peanut said. Wang Ling listened to Little Peanut talk about the reactions of the other people in class when he and President Bai had fought yesterday. Among the girls, Lotus Sun and Feather Lin were the saddest. In contrast, the boys were more stable and most of them were silent. Super Chen was the only one who acted like nothing had happened, because he felt that Wang Ling would be fine. Yesterday, Little Peanut had thought that Super Chen was cold-blooded, but now it seemed that Super Chen's mouth was indeed a little fierce. As they were chatting, Dopigua and Super Chen also came into class. The moment they saw Wang Ling, they were startled. Dopigua, yo! Wang Ling, you're still alive. Wang Ling, I've really let you down. Dopigua, will you reimburse me for the reeds I bought yesterday? Wang Ling. This was purely a joke, so Wang Ling's expression didn't change at all. Super Chen slapped his thigh. Look, what did I say? I said Wang Ling would be fine. This is the mascot of our class. How could he be fine? Wang Ling, did you see the news this morning? I heard that President Bai blew himself up in the space, and nothing was left of him. Super Chen laughed. Look, Wang Ling survived a disaster. Not only did he escape a calamity, he was captured by President Bai and even made him self-destruct. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Ling went to high school with us, I would have suspected that he was the protagonist. Is there a definite connection between the two? Little Peanut asked doubtfully. Super Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Which protagonist would choose to study in an ordinary high school? Otherwise, there must be something wrong with their brains. Chapter 697. This morning was destined to be anything but tranquil. Wang Ling's unscathed return became the talk of the entire number 60 high school and directly cemented his status as a mascot. Wang Ling heard a lot of things. People were always animals that only knew how to cherish things after they had lost them, although Wang Ling had always been trying his best to keep a low profile and to erase his existence. When they heard the bad news about him yesterday, all the alumni of number 60 high school, whether they knew or didn't know him, felt as if there was a fishbone stuck in their throats. The girls in the class were usually carefree, but because of this matter yesterday, they were all wiping their tears sadly. The person who surprised Wang Ling the most was Teacher Pan. Old Pan had asked for leave from work today. It was said that she had cried herself hoarse yesterday and was in an extremely bad state of mind, so she had no choice but to ask Director Shi for leave. The scariest thing was always a mental blow. In all her years of teaching, Old Pan had never seen her students meet with an accident, so she had suffered a very serious psychological blow after hearing this. In class, there were times when she would be a little violent with her classmates because of their studies, but in Old Pan's eyes, every student was actually like her child. Wang Ling had always felt that this was just a polite greeting, so after learning today that Old Pan had asked for leave and the reason for it, Wang Ling's heart sank. When he had acted yesterday, he should have been more thoughtful. For example, if he had left a clone at school, the problem might not have developed to this extent, but at that time, Wang Ling had sensed President Bai's murderous intent in the classroom and hadn't had time to think about it before he had walked out of the school gate to meet the challenge. Because if he had been one step later, the space trap hidden at the school gate would have definitely sucked in the other students. This had been an unexpected accident, and it was very obvious that President Bai had made this decision on the spur of the moment, since his eyelid warning hadn't alerted Wang Ling in advance. Sometimes, it was really hard to guard against impromptu actions like this. But as the saying went, once bitten, twice shy. After this crisis experience, Wang Ling felt that if he ran into trouble again in the future, he would be a lot more familiar with it. Wait a minute. Why did he say, again? Not long after Wang Ling had left for school this morning, a guest came to the Wang family's small villa. A middle-aged uncle with a righteous face and a sturdy figure in a well-ironed suit drove up to the entrance of the villa. "Pick me up in the evening," the middle-aged man said to the driver. "Yes, my lord." The driver nodded and drove away after the middle-aged man got out of the car. Because it was not his first time here, the driver was already familiar with the nearby roads. The closest restaurant to the villa was Midnight Dining Hall. Although Boss Tan hadn't officially opened for business yet and only offered some newly released summer snacks, it was more than enough time to polish it. This was a frequent guest of the Wang family's small villa, but Wang Ling had never seen him before because every time this uncle came over, it was always on a working day. Inside the villa, Nurse Wang heard the noise at the door and hurried to open the door. "Welcome, sir." Please come in. This was an important person, and he couldn't be neglected. When the middle-aged man entered the door, Mother Wang took out a pair of slippers from the shoe cabinet, which was specially prepared for him. Brother Situ, are you still writing something upstairs? The middle-aged man asked after changing into his slippers. Yes, I've written quite a lot today. But there's a new chapter to read. The middle-aged man smiled like a child. Mother Wang, what does Madam want to eat for lunch? I'm fine with anything. I'm not here for food. But it's best not to make broccoli. I realize that every time I come here, there's broccoli. It's a little boring. The middle-aged man said. Mother Wang, very well, madam. Elsewhere, General E, who had already made up his mind to come to the Wang family's small villa to find out what was going on, was in the midst of making preparations. Thus, it was very important to find an appropriate excuse. As soon as General E arrived in Songhai City, arrangements had already been made for his old subordinates. In fact, it wasn't just Songhai City. General Yi's old subordinates were spread throughout every province in Huaxiao Nation. Before General Yi had retired as a cultivator, all the sword cultivators in Huaxiao Nation had to listen to his commands. All the sword cultivators were part of the special police. Now that General Yi had retired as a cultivator, his old subordinates had all become leading cadres. Thus, even though General Yi had already retired as a cultivator, these current leading cadres still maintained 100% respect for his old leaders. Logically speaking, visiting the parents of a student who was the focus of the news should have been reported to the education department, but General Yi didn't want to alarm the alliance of 10,000 schools this time, so the whole thing was carried out in secret. Everything is ready? What name are we going under this time? General Yi sat in his office in Songhai City Police Station as he browsed through the news on Wang Ling. He had wanted to look up personal information on this student Wang Ling, but in the end realized that there was pitifully little information on Wang Ling in the newspapers, and there wasn't even a photo of him, whether it was in the newspapers or online. General Yi was now becoming more and more curious about this matter. Who on earth was pulling the strings behind the scenes? Yes, teacher, everything has been arranged. We'll go under the name of the Poverty Relief Foundation. A department-level cadre stood respectfully in front of General Yi. This was the head of the police department. Many police officers who passed by the office door looked at him through the window with astonished expressions. It was said that everything had its vanquisher. No one thought that the usually hot-tempered head would actually have such a well-behaved side. The Poverty Relief Foundation? That's right. This student previously received a poverty relief program jointly launched by Number 60 High and the General Administration of 100 schools. What does this child want? Energy-gathering pills? Foundation establishment pills? Or spirit-gathering pills? Or some money? General E nodded as he continued to ask questions. In one breath, he listed the names of several kinds of elixirs which were commonly used by foundation establishment cultivators to speed up their cultivation. No matter what this child wants, since we're going under the name of the Poverty Relief Foundation this time, we can't go empty-handed. No matter what we've helped before, we're going to double it this time, General E said very seriously. In the end, the head shook his head. No, teacher. This student wants crispy noodle snacks. Hearing this, General E was blank as he suddenly felt a little old and muddle-headed. Crispy noodle snacks. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.